here.
They're still on the call in the hallway.
We'll get it kicked off real quick. So want to kind of follow Danny. Danny loves to stay completely on time, so I will do my best.
Yes.
I will do my best to keep us on time. I know we gave an extra 5 minutes for people for breakfast, things like that. Want to do just, obviously we're going to do quick introductions. Most people, kind of a small group here. I know thank you for everybody for coming. Optical Tel, this was obviously a lot of time. In a lot of ways, we've been planning this EBC since last year, trying to get you to Sunnyvale. But great to have Juniper's support here locally, kind of bring everybody in to kind of really go over ACX and MX today. Chris, I know you put a lot of work into, kind of what you're going to talk about here in terms of use cases. So wanted to thank everybody for coming. I know this is, traveling and doing all this a little bit, but I think we had a great agenda today to kind of cover a lot of things. Unfortunately, Brian Hill, travel, time, summer, it's normal. So Brian Hill, this was his meeting, this was his thing. Unfortunately, he couldn't work it out. So I'm going to kick it over to Danny. He did do a short video for everybody to kind of introduce himself. We'll do introductions and then we'll get started with you, Chris.
Welcome to the joy and beautiful downtown St. Petersburg, Florida. I am Brian Hill, President and Chief Revenue Officer at Imperium Data. We're very excited for you guys to be here today for our Executive Business Conference with Juniper Networks, presenting the ACX and MX product line. We have some of the best minds in the business, best minds at Juniper specifically, telling you about the product line roadmap, best use cases, and how to create a world-class carrier network. We're very proud to be able to sponsor this with Juniper and very excited for you to be here today with us. Looking forward to a great time.
Great. I guess from there, Chris, I guess we can just start with you real quick on just introduction, and then we'll come back to you to get started.
All right. So I have the introduction in there. So.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Well, we'll let you go that.
Yeah, you go.
Vinny, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I'm Vinny Verkaman. I run the channel for the Southeast, and I manage all the channel partners. And Imperium, one of our Elite Plus partners, the highest level partner in the company. That's how we rank them from reseller all the way to Elite Plus. There's 4 tiers, so really good partner you're with. So glad to be here.
I'm Carly Longo from Imperium Data. I'm a business development executive.
I'm Danny Minogue, and I am the Director of Marketing at Imperium Data.
Nick Scarcella, I guess I did not introduce myself. CEO of Imperium.
Hello, my name is Aisha, and I am Product Manager for ACX and representing Juniper.
My name is Chad Jones. I'm a consulting SC supporting Vinny and channel and.
I love it.
And I'm Mike Soto. I am with Optical Tel, and I am the Director of Engineering.
Great. And then Javier.
Javier is our CTO. He's always on the phone. So
Anybody else on the phone to introduce?
Who do we have online?
Yep, we have Jeffrey, Daniel, Alex, and then Bernie. You guys want to go through?
Yeah.
Your introduction? That'd be great.
Sure. Call quality is a little iffy depending on who's talking, but I'm Jeffrey Hyland. I'm the Director of Network Operations for FiberFast Homes. Daniel, I think, is.
And I'm Daniel.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm driving. My bad. I'm Daniel Whitlock. I'm a network engineer at FiberFast Homes.
Anybody else?
Yeah, we have Alex and Bernice.
Yep. Good morning. My name is Alex. I am a CTO with Gigabit Fiber. We are a Dallas-based fiber infrastructure provider.
And I'm Bernice Thor. I'm a colleague of Chad's, and he let me kindly let me just listen in today.
Awesome.
All right, we'll turn it over to you, Chris. I'm sure you got the voice projection. I think everybody will be able to hear you.
Yeah. Yes.
We'll see what happens on this one. All right. Yeah, it starts out with a comma. All right. So I'm a principal solutions architect. So what does that mean when I say an architect? It means go into a organization and see what's going on and see what I can do to help them make their environment better and make their lives a little bit easier. That is what I do, and that's what I love doing. On the right side, you're going to see me right in front of an OTN cabinet on my birthday on a Sunday working through a problem. I ran a network operations team, so I took care of everything from all the way from the house gear, all the way to the BGP side, to the peers that connect to that customer in previous life. And there was no way I was going to call out one of my guys to actually go work on this problem, seeing how it was 20 minutes down the road from my house. So I got out my laptop and my console cable and all my other stuff that I have it all at all times. I even have it today. I have console cables, everything I can connect to. So if a customer has a problem, I deal with it. That is what I like to do and how I like to take care of things. And underneath there, that's me diving about 120 feet and, you know, pointing to somebody, and I like that picture. I am an instructor and I'm a tech diver, so love it. On the weekends, I tend to be hard to get a hold of, but once I'm on the boat, I'll have a voicemail and then I'll deal with the problem at that point. So a little bit more about me. Technology-wise, used to work for Cisco, Aris, CommScope. Aris, CommScope, the same thing. A few other of those vendors. I know my Juniper. You know, I've been certified in Juniper. I'm going back and redoing my certifications because I let them lapse about 10 years ago. So in the past 10 years, I haven't done certifications because I've been more focused on the training and everything else. And recently I've been asked to go and do some more training and get the certifications to go with it. So that's my plan over the next year. For enterprise networks, I've done everything from large call centers all the way to small enterprise. For service providers, I've worked in the largest service provider in the US, all the way down to a small environment. When somebody comes up to me and they say that, you know, they've got 20, 100,000 customers, I'm like, that's great. Now, think about that, but also think about when you hit 1 million and they look at me and they're like, that's pretty big. And I'm like, yeah, but you gotta scale. Scale is really important. You gotta be able to scale wherever you're at. So you gotta not only deal with the today's issue or whatever you've got going on for the 10,000, 50,000 customers, but think about if you hit 1 million, what is the difference gonna be? So if you go in there and you have a user account, Juniper with the password of Juniper on every single device, that is not going to scale. Housekeeping, I'm going to go over some housekeeping items. I'm going to talk about the backbone network. I'm going to talk about a optical transport, and all this is the greenfield. What I was asked to do was come up with a greenfield and what I would do. So if somebody came along and said, hey, here's $100 million, go build a service provider, what would you do? And that is going to be today's presentation on what we're going to do and how we're going to make this happen. And there's a couple of drawings that I'm going to go through in here too. So we're going to start out with a housekeeping item. I tend to talk fast. I've gone through a lot of public speaking and every single one of them has said, you talk really, really fast. I try not to, and I try to have my slides laid out in such a way. Kelsey's been in a couple of these conversations and he knows I tend to talk fast. So to help slow me down, ask questions. Let's be interactive. This is going to be a part of a series of presentations. I was asked when I first came here to Imperium to do the presentations because they've seen I've done it in the past, but in the last couple of years I haven't because of the place I was working with. I was so busy in getting the network up and running, take an old network and go there. They asked me, hey, do you want us to keep on doing some presentations? And I was like, yes, I do. Let's go into customers and have some conversations. So what I'm planning on doing is going to the Danog, Aaron, SCTE, and do some of these kind of presentations. So this very first one is going to be about the greenfield, and then I'm going to go, hey, if you've got a layer 3 network but no other connectivity, how are we going to make that happen? A layer 2 network, and how do I make it the next generation network? those kind of things. If anybody here has a use case that they come back and they go, hey, it would be great if we converted from a IPv4 to IPv6. How do we do that? I'm more than happy to create a presentation and put that together and then present it. So in this presentation, we're going to do Juniper for the network transport. You're going to see some Infinera stuff in here. And the reason why is some of the optics that Juniper has doesn't go the distances that we need to go. So we're going to bring Infinera in for that part of the conversation. Mid-level investment. Once again, I've worked with Kelsey in the past before. He's seen a couple of my presentations where I'll give 3 options to management. I will give them option 1, the cheap option. Option 2 is the mid-level option. Option 3 is when we have so much money that we don't care how much we spend. And those how I work. And normally the number 2 option is the one I want to go with. This is a very high-level overview. I call it the MacGyver scenario. And what I mean by that is there's some details that are left out. I don't want anybody to hurt themselves or break their network because of everything that I gave. And we can have some conversations and I can explain why things work the way they do. So this will be really high level, and I'm going to kind of breeze over a few things. Let's talk about MPLS for a quick second. MPLS, I'll be talking about this today. You can spend 2 weeks in training and not know everything about MPLS and BGP and how it works. So that's why it's going to be really high level. So a part of this is where I'm going to go with this and the housekeeping items is a layer 2 network. So a lot of organizations will have a layer 2 network. There's a lot of pros to it. The IP addressing, IPv4. So where you could just use VLANs all across your network and you can just have one big block of IP addresses. And that's great. And the cost is a little bit less than going full MPLS. And that part will work. The cons of that is it's a layer 2 network. You don't want to do a layer 2 network over a major span. You certainly, if you guys look on the right side where you see the red over there, there's a reason why he left that red. So if that was a service provider, another service provider, and you don't have the connectivity, so you're doing what's called lit services, you might not have visibility over that layer 2 network. I have had problems with lit services from people where they would drop my layer 2 packets and I don't know why, and I wouldn't see it. And I wouldn't know why I'm dropping packets. That's a problem. Scalability. You only have so many MAC addresses that you can put on a layer 2 network, so you can go above and beyond that. It's complex. And I already talked about the wave visibility or lit services. Layer 3 network has a lot of visibility. You can see exactly what's going on in your network on every single one of the connections, and it will scale. It will scale really easily. What's the concept there? IP addressing. Go ahead.
Yep, Jeff.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Sorry, I was just coughing. I'll mute.
No worries.
No worries. So that helped slow me down a little. So that works. So one of the cons is IP addressing. I don't know if any of you have gone out and looked at how much IP addresses are. But when I was in a previous life, I bought a /16 for $1 million. I want to say 3 years ago, and then 2 years ago, I bought another /16 and I spent $3 million for it. That's not good, and it's only going to keep going up. So there is some complexity involved in a layer 3 network as well. So this here is my network that I'm building, and greenfield, so nobody's connected to it right now. And this is how I did it. There's some ACX, a lot of different ACXs sitting out here. We've got ACX 7, the 7 series. So the 7100 for the backbone and the core network. I've got the ACX 7024. Previously that was the 710, but now we got the 7024 that we can use. That will have PON on it along with any one of the business customers. And I will go more detail in each one of these areas later on. But I'm just showing you all the different connections. Not only that, I'm also showing you the sizes and the distances. So we're using 400 gig wave. Now, when I say wave, I'm talking about lit services there. So that's not a circuit that we have, and we're leasing that circuit. And then I'll have all these other connections going through. And I'm spending some time explaining how all this is coming up. And then I've got my data center. I've got 2 data centers, and they're interconnected by 2 400 gig pipes. So that's 800 gig of traffic that we're able to send across here. And anyone can do this, what I'm drawing up here today, you could do this today without a problem. You could do this in your sleep. So on the server clusters, I will spend some time on how I have them connected and then what I was thinking about. Oh, somebody changed up my my slide a little bit. All of a sudden it changed. I'm like, woo, okay. That was a little bit of a shock there. All right. So out in the edge and the pop, I've got the MX480. There's a reason why I did that. We're going to have internet exchanges. And if anybody doesn't have internet exchanges today, you need to look at internet exchanges. You need to go and peer with others. So you need to peer with the Googles, the Facebooks, and everybody else. That way, it'll take traffic off your peer. And that's really important. Route reflectors. We will go over a little more detail on the route reflector. That one's pretty good there. So the core layer, like I said before, is going to be the ACX 7100. And then I listed some of the different models and the reasons why you would have them. For the data center, you know, today we're doing 25 gig on most of our server connections, and they seem to be working out pretty well. Maybe tomorrow in the future, you need to do some 100 gig connections. So on your, if you have a speed test server, which everybody should have, on your speed test server, you should have the highest connection you possibly can. So 25 gig, 100 gig, so that you can send your best foot forward for your customers. SRX 4200 will be the firewall that we'll have in here, but it's also going to be the IDS IPS system. And like I said, later on, we'll go over that in detail. On the access layer, if you look at the access layer, we have the ACX 7024, we have the EX 4400. Now, down that list, we've got, so if I'm going through and I'm going into a business, what I want to send into the business, the SRX 320 is great for that, for businesses, because I can have visibility into what they're doing. And then the other thing I do on there is what's called a VRF. So me, myself, Kelsey that's sitting here, and then Matt, we had an incident one time where I put a SRX 320 into a customer site, and then one of my guys went in there and made a change. And all of a sudden it broke and we didn't have access to it anymore. And I was like, well, that's a problem. So we had to go to the customer site, fix the change that they made, find out what happened. So then what I came up with, hey, if we tag from the ACX 7024 down to the SRX 320, and then we put a VRF for a management, and then I tell everybody, no one can make any changes in the VRF. Nobody can make any changes on that, excuse me, on the access connection into the SRX 320. And so that made it so that we always had access to it. And then we set up 2 different VRFs, one for the customer and one for the management network. After that, we never had any problems anymore. I threatened to have some really stern conversations with employees if they ever changed it. So then we look at optics. The top right optic right there, that's 400 gig. That heat sink that's on there, that is really, really important. That optic is very, very hot. So they need that. That's 400 gig. Then below there is the DAC cable. If you guys haven't started using DAC cables, take a look at the DAC cables. Those are really, really nice. And then on the bottom is a 100 gig connection. I put in there all the different optics that we're going to use in this config and how we have it all set up. Now we're going to go over the optical transport. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it, so I'm going to be kind of breezy on this one. But what I'm doing here is, I've got all these different connections, I removed the wave connections. Why? Because we don't have to do any optics. What we're going to do across is we have fiber connections. Now, maybe we're fiber rich or we're fiber poor, but for me, that part doesn't really matter. I don't care if we're fiber rich or fiber poor, but what I really want to do is pretend we're fiber poor, and I want to go in there and do some DWM filtering. And we will explain what the DWM filtering is. So DWM filtering is, you've got a filter here that goes 48, gives me 48 channels. So I can do 48 400 gig connections if I wanted to. I could do whatever I wanted within there, because each one of them is a channel that we're going to use on the DWDM. In the previous life, I only used 8 channels, but what I really want to focus on is the, right there where I have circled red, is the OCM. Other vendors call it an ALM, another vendor calls it a OLM, but basically that is your optical management port. It allows you to see what's going on both ends of your connection. What's really nice about this, and if anybody walks away with anything today, this is the one thing I really want you to walk away from. So back in that previous life that Kelsey helped me out with, anytime I had a problem on let's say it was a 32 kilometer connection, I had to go out to my team and go, okay, I want you to send somebody out send somebody out there, go take a look. Then I want you to send the fiber guys to go take a look. Then the fiber guys had to disconnect the fiber, actually plug in a OTDR, and then they had to see what the distance is. And then they would come back and go, okay, so on this 35 kilometer connection, it's at 30 kilometers. Now I got to drive down there, and then I got to keep going back and forth. That would take hours. You're talking 3-4 hour outage. The very first time that we went in and we added these filters in there, and then we started monitoring the connection, the NOC could go in there and go on both ends, hey, all right, so back to the 35 kilometers. So they could go, hey, from this end, it's 5 kilometers back. On this end, it's 30 kilometers back. Now the NOC could do a circle, send a map over to the fiber guy and go somewhere in here on a map is a problem. No, by the way, here's where the fiber is running. So you can go take a look. And what happened was we had a dump truck that took out the fiber. And so they had an idea where it was, and then they saw the actual, both fibers sitting on the ground because the dump truck took it out. So when we normally had a 3-4 hour outage, that outage came down to about 45 minutes. We happened to have a fiber tech out there. They came out and they go, wow, it was sliced in a pretty good spot. They went and spliced the connections that we needed to get it up and running. So we went from 3 to 4 hours down to, I'd say, about an hour at most. That's a lot of money right there. That is, I couldn't spend enough time explaining how valuable that is. Knowing what's going on your network. So one of the things I wanted to show everybody was what an OTN cabinet looks like. So this is a cabinet out in the field and how we have it set up. So on the very top is the patch panel. I could not find a fiber patch panel picture to pull it out, so that is an RJ45 patch panel. It is what it is. Next, we have the amplifier, and then we have the DWM filter right underneath it. Underneath that, we have the ACX 7100, and we have 2. I always put 2. Even in a scenario where you have multiple soups and everything else, you know, the MX 480, you could put multiple soups in there. You can make this thing as redundant as humanly possible. Until the whole box itself dies and something happens to it, then you're going to be like, wow, I wish I would have put 2. So I always put 2 as much as humanly possible. So I have 2 separate boxes for that. The ACX 724, same scenario. We have 2 in there for redundancy. And then underneath that, you're going to see a lot of APCs. Well, this is out in the field. You need to have, it's going to take about 2 hours for somebody to go out and figure out what's going on. So you need a lot of battery to make sure all that gear can run without a problem until they figure out what happened to the fire. And then that little blank slot right there, that is going to be your PON connection. I was gonna go and spend a little time on what your PON connections are gonna be, but we'll explain that one later. So now we're gonna have a conversation about the IP network. So, IP network, for the IGP, we're gonna talk about ISIS. We're gonna have a conversation why ISIS is a good idea and why OSPF is not so much. Gonna go over the EBG. So EBGP is your external BGP protocol. Everybody's gonna have it because you're gonna have peers that you're gonna connect to. And in order to connect to these peers, you're gonna need some route reflectors. And we'll go over why the route reflectors are a good idea as well. Our IBGP is basically for your MPLS connections and how MPLS has conversations. And then later on, we're gonna really be breezy about the spine leaf architecture. So why ISIS? So OSPF, OSPF for V6, and if you guys ever Googled my name, you're gonna see a lot about V6. When I worked at Comcast, my only job was to get V6 up and running. We spent a lot of time to get Comcast up and running for V6, and we saved billions of dollars on just getting V6 up and running. And if anybody ever wants to have a conversation about how that and why we did it the way we did it, or how we saved billions, more than happy to have that conversation, just not on a recorded session. So IPv6 for OSPF requires version 3. So the one nice thing that I like about OSPF, and once again in that previous life, it was a little bit easier to show people, hey, they already started things on OSPF for version 2, and then they started doing V4. And then we turned up OSPF version 3, and then instead of doing V6 and V4 on the same OSPF version, what we did is OSPF version 3 for V6. So then you had 2 protocols for OSPF. But then I started figuring out that one of my guys didn't like change, and he didn't like adding it in there, and he didn't like making sure that that was going on. So then I just started saying, listen, you gotta do ISIS. We're done. You're gonna put V6, V4 in there, V6 all in one. So that made it really nice. So for security, OSPF is a IP protocol, and it runs on IP, so you could potentially do a DDoS to it. You can do other kind of attacks. ISIS is less likely because it's on layer 2. So unless somebody attacks a device that's on your current layer 2 connection, they won't be able to get to it. OSPF less flexible than ISIS, that is a given. OSPF, if you go into a lot of these environments, like once again in the previous life, there was OSPF area 0, and there was no other area. So every time something happened in Jacksonville, you saw it down in Miami. And they were wondering why that was. Well, because you have everything on the same area, so the whole routing table was being changed. So we had to get it over to ISIS. And if you do any more than about 75 routers in the same OSPF area, you're starting to get a little too big for OSPF. You got to break it up into different areas. So the IP network, gotta love it. So where's my packet going? Where is it coming from? And that's really important here. On the right side, I'm showing you an example for Google and an example for Facebook. So those are internet exchanges that we have there. And if I'm coming from this laptop and I am trying to go to Facebook, I don't want it to go up to data center 1 and go out the pier. I don't want that. I want it to go south down to data center 2 and then go directly. So how do I do that? Well, this is where the BGP and the MPLS is going to be great, because I can actually do source-based routing and destination-based routing, and I can make things happen the way I want them to go. And then the other thing I have is from that laptop, my default session is always going to go south because it's going to have less hops and it's going to look better going south to the data center 2. But if it wants to go to Google, if it's trying to do a DNS lookup for 8.8.8.8, I want it to go up to data center 1. So I'm going to go into the MPLS. I want to make some of that stuff happen. And it also offloads, I don't know how many people actually pay, if you go spend some time over at Nanog and there's an actual peering sessions, and you can have conversations with different people. You can have the Google, the AWS, they all go to Nanog and they have conversations with people because they want to peer with as many people as they can so they can offload as much as they can from the internet, because everybody's got to pay for it. So go have some conversations with some folks. If you want introductions, I'm more than happy to go have some introductions and make some of that stuff happen. The next thing we have on here is carrier grade NAT. Me personally, I hate carrier grade NAT. It's the worst thing that came along, but it's the necessary evil. We have to do it because you can't spend $3 million for a slash 16 every time you got a new customer coming up, and you can't do that. Instead, you're gonna spend $500,000 for a carrier grade NAT solution to $1 million, and to turn it up and make some magic happen there. But if you have carrier grade NAT, please have IPv6 going, because that will offload a lot from your carrier grade NAT solution. And if you have people going out to Facebook, so in the previous life, what I did was I mapped how much of the conversations were going, and we had a lot of retirement communities. In the retirement communities, we're going to Facebook a lot. And I don't know if everybody knows this, but Facebook, what they use is they use IPv6 on the front end. Even though that they have IPv4, you are actually, if you're going in there for IPv4, you're actually hitting their data center on IPv4. The moment you hit their data center on IPv4, you are actually being converted to IPv6. They do it backwards because they ran out of IP addresses a long time ago. So they took their whole data center, converted it to IPv6, everything underneath their load balancers. So once you hit their load balancer on IPv4, you're converted to IPv6. So it would behoove you to convert over to IPv6 to make sure your data transmissions to Facebook are direct instead of going through that. And I already had the conversation about MPLS, source-based routing, destination-based routing. That is really important in today's environment. So we're going to go over MPLS layer 2, layer 3 VPNs. So we have a customer here that came up to me and they said, hey, we would love to have a connection in South Florida. I've got an office in Coral Springs. I've got an office in Miami, another one in Boca Raton, and another one in Fort Lauderdale. I would love to make all those connections, and I can see you guys have fiber. And at the time, I had to say, yeah, I could do that, but I had to connect it all through fiber. I had to use a pair of fiber just to make all those connections happen. Now, they were happy, but I couldn't charge them as a dark fiber customer because they would have never gone to me and said, yeah, this is great. So what I had to do was give them dark fiber, knowing that sooner or later we're going to do an MPLS connection, we're going to get it up and running. So then I could take back that dark fiber that they have, and then I'm going to give them a lit wave services through MPLS. And now what can happen is, once you have that connection up and running, notice the main and the ABC company, if they're going to come by and they're going to have a big connection, why only have one connection? Let's get two connections. Let's go in north, south, east, west into the company. Let's go into our cabinets, have multiple connections in there. Now, maybe they don't want to pay for multiple connections in each one of their sites, but that's okay. Let's do the best we can for their main site and make sure that they know how much value they have by having multiple connections. And then we'll go through and we'll have MPLS create those tunnels for us. And at the same time, you know, their sites 1 and 2, they don't want to have them come back to the main and then go out to the internet from there. So they're going to need a way to be able to go out to the internet directly. We can take care of that as well. So the next part about MPLS is the traffic engineering. So I want my video traffic to have a little bit more priority than my other traffic. If I've got voice traffic, I want it to have a little bit more as well. But we got to be careful on how much we change the traffic engineering, because there's, you know, net neutrality and all that. We got to be careful on how much we actually change and manipulate the traffic. But what we want to do is go in there and go, hey, let's make X, Y, Z stuff that we've got going on, our own management traffic, to not overwhelm the customer traffic. Customer traffic is going to have priority, but everything else should be the next one down. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go VXLAN between the data centers. We want to make sure that the data centers can have the VLANs between them. We want to be able to share as much as humanly possible. If one of the data center fails, we want to be able to move all that, all the resources and everything else down to the other data center. We want to make sure everybody's aware of everybody else. And we want it to be auto, pretty sure I had auto magic on there.
No, it was a misspelling.
It what?
Auto magic.
No, it was auto magic.
That's what he wanted.
That's what I wanted.
Oh, you're killing his presentation.
I know.
Getting killed over here, Chris.
I know.
So,
Who knew?
so that kind of dates me a little bit. So auto magic was an actual term at one point. That was a term on, it wasn't quite automatic and it wasn't quite manual. It was somewhere in the middle. So we called it auto magic. That was that. Yeah. See, some of my references, it kind of dates me a little bit. I might tell people, you know, I'm 29, but really not.
Yeah.
So BGP sessions. Why is a route reflector really important? It's not only really important, it's extremely important. So if you only have BGP connections with your peers, which you might, like if you're not using BGP internally, so you're using IBGP, you're not using it, then you won't hit the scenario. But what you really have to have is every single router has to connect to all the other peers in the same AS. So on the left here, it shows you 10 routers, it's gonna have 45 connections. Now that took me a little bit to create all the connections, because I actually went in there and created all.
You missed one.
Cool. I missed one?
Yeah, bottom right.
Talking about that right there? Thanks, man, I appreciate that.
I can't not see it now.
Yeah. And I kind of figured that was gonna happen. So I was gonna steal some of the drawings from Juniper, and I was like, no, I can't do that. This is my presentation. I couldn't steal that picture. There's a couple other pictures I just stole because I was running out of time. I was running out of time, but I did steal some pictures from Juniper. You'll see them later on, but I didn't want to when I was building this. So BGP route reflector. Kelsey will remember this. I called Kelsey and Matt one day and I'm like, hey, we're gonna go to MPLS. We're gonna set all this stuff up. I need some route reflectors. What does Juniper have? And sure enough, I got a quote right away. Here's what you need and we'll get you set up. I'm like, great, let's get this done. Because of the fact that before, once again in that previous life, all we had for BGP was connections out to our peers for the internet. That was it. So we didn't have a lot of BGP sessions. I think we had a total of like 6. And so it was easy to do. But as we're setting up MPLS, we needed a lot more than that. And by the way, if you even look at the drawing that I had earlier, we had a lot more than 10 routers. So I stopped it at 10 just to make the math look easy and try to make it all look pleasing to the eye. But need I say more on BGP route reflectors? All right, so now we're gonna go to the data center. And what does a data center rack look like? First thing that should pop out at everybody is there's no PON fiber connections in here. Not at all. So you need a whole new rack for that. So there's a data center that I'm in that we have a whole rack, has no power whatsoever. All it has in it is fiber. And so for us in here on the top right, once again, we have a patch panel. That patch panel is just the cross connects. So it's a 2U just for cross connects. And if you notice in here, I have 2 sets of optical gear. Now, why do I have 2 sets of optical gear? The reason for that is when I have north and east routes, south and west routes, I want those fiber connections on different panels. I don't want them on the same one. If something goes down, I want to be able to fail over. So we have them separated out. So the next thing down, we have the ACX 7100. That is my core in the data center, in all the different connections that are going to be within this data center. The next thing down from there is the beautiful MX480. This thing's a workhorse. On here, we're going to have our carrier grade NAT. We're going to have all of our full 100 gig connections. The carrier grade NAT is going to be extremely important because it's going to be some of our source-based routing and how we're going to actually connect to things. So I'll take a second to explain the carrier grade NAT side of things. So what I would do in the carrier grade NAT is I would go in there and set up 164 for my customers. And then if a customer comes along and says, hey, I do a lot of gaming and I can't use carrier grade NAT. What I would do is, okay. So I would go into my provisioning system. I would give them a legitimate v4 IP address and say, you have 1 year to figure out your stuff. I'm going to give it to you for free for 1 year. But in 1 year from now, you're going to start paying for IPv4. If you don't want to pay for it, convert back over to carrier grade NAT. Give them a year to figure out what's going on. So the next thing down we have is our SRXs. So that is going to be for our enterprise environment. So for our DHCP service, DNS, everything else that we have behind there, provisioning, customer base, whatever we've got to supply for our customers to make sure everything's up and running, that's going to be right there. The next one down is going to be our IPS IDS system. Now I know we can put our IDS IPS system in the firewall, but I don't want to do that. I want to have it separated. And the reason for that is I want to have our system go in there, monitor a bunch of different VLANs, going through, making sure things are going on. I want to have the IPS IDS system to be separate from everything else. I want to make sure we keep an eye on it, make sure nothing happens to it, make sure everybody sees what's going on. The next one down is going to be our QFX 5120s. Now, what that is going to be is you're going to have a connection from there up to our SRXs and up to our core to make sure everything's connected. And then those will go back down to our servers. And those will be, so the next one down from there is the servers that connect up to our 5120s. Now the servers are all the HP. I put in 3 HP servers with a SAN storage underneath there. Then underneath that, you're gonna see another 7024. Now what's that for? Now any data center I've ever been in, we've actually found other customers that we can connect to that were really close. So there's my access layer once again. PON or business customers that can connect through. That seems like a lot in one rack, and it is a lot in one rack. But it's doable. As you can see right there, that's doable. The next rack would have to be no power, all it is fiber. Changing up my slide again. I like that though, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, added in some little pizzazz.
Yeah, a little pizzazz in there, that's good. If anybody sees anything I ever develop, I develop things and I had to go through and write some code to get some data. And then when the data came back, it was here's the text. And a couple people looked at it and they're like, man, this is like simple to the point, but there's nothing shooting out at you. That, in my head, that is it.
Yeah.
I'm here's the data, here's the details, and then we move on from there. For the data center network, we've got the DHCP servers for both V4 and V6. One of the first things you need to do is go disable Slack on the layer 3 connections. You gotta disable it so it will go back, go to your DHCP server, ask for what V6 address that it wants, and then you're gonna do something called prefix delegation. Like I said before, if anybody needs help on that, I've done it multiple times in million plus environments, so I can help you out with that. And then you need a database to have those connections. Sooner or later, somebody's going to send you an email going, hey, this one person was hacking my network, who was it? You're gonna need to go back in, figure out who that was, and send them a nice email going, your system might have been hacked, or you might be doing something you're not supposed to be doing. Let's not do that. You're gonna need some time servers, especially if you have DOCSIS in your environment. DNS servers. Now, do most people use Google for it? Yes, but you shouldn't. Sooner or later, Google goes through it and sees how many connections from your IP addresses, and then they're gonna come back and start slowing you down or even shut you down for those connections. It's a lot of connections, but you gotta be careful for that. So have your own DNS servers. Once again, IPS, IDS, I can't mention IPS, IDS enough. You know, prevent yourself from getting DDoS. I've gotten DDoS before. I've had those issues, and we did have an IDS IPS system in place, but it wasn't picking up certain signatures, and we fixed it right away so that it picked it up. In this presentation, I don't spend a lot of time or at all about the provisioning, but you need a provisioning system. If you have DOCSIS, it is very easy to set up a provisioning system. All you need is a DHCP server. You can go in there and have the DHCP server and a TFTP server and have it set up to actually provision your MAC addresses. It would be a very manual process, but you can do it. Monitoring system. You need Nagios. You need something going in there, figuring out what's going on in your network, making sure people are alerted that, hey, XYZ is going on, let's fix this. Oh, Radius TACAC system. Just a few years ago, one of the companies I worked for, they had Juniper, Cisco as the password. And I'm like, and then when I first came out, I'm like, you guys can't do that. That's not good. So then they changed it to like password 123, and I'm like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. We need to go in there, we need to put a Radius system in TACAX, because if one of you make a change and you break something, I'm not gonna yell at you or anything, but I need to know what's going on. I need to be able to fix things. The next thing I did when I was there, secure CRT. I went in and I said, okay, here's what your settings for secure CRT will be. You will log everything you do. You break something, I need you to take a second. If it busts where you can't access anymore and it's totally broken, I need you to take a second. I need you to get the logs, send it to the whole team right away and say, okay, this is broken. I need help fixing it. Here's the logs. Here's what I just did. And that has happened a couple times where they sent it out and it's great. I'm not going to yell at you. We're going to have a conversation about what you did, why you did it, and then we'll go through and we'll fix it, and then we'll move on from that. But secure CRT logging everything you're doing is very important. In the TACAC system, I also logged everything that they were doing. So when they were typing things and it was coming back to the system. It worked great for the Cisco gear, Juniper gear, and all the other gear that we had, the Calix gear, everything. That it would log everything that people were doing so we can see what was going on. It wasn't to get anybody in trouble. It was to know what's going on. Juniper PON solution. During COVID, we were having a hard time getting Calix gear. So that opened the door for Kelsey and Matt to come in and knock on the door and say, hey, are you guys having a problem buying some gear? And I go, yeah. And they're like, how can I help you out? Do you guys have a PON solution? And they go, yes, actually we do. I'm like, wonderful. So they came up and they go, here's some, put in the LAN in your lab and run some tests. And that's exactly what we did. We put it in there and it was a great solution. So then we started going in and we used Juniper PON to run through ourselves. Now that's an ACX 710. That's not the newer 7024, but that's what we used in the past. The 7024 is going to support PON here pretty soon, right? That's shaking heads, yes? Okay. This is one of the pictures I stole from Juniper on the top and the bottom there. I was trying to find a better picture on how the OLTs work with the splitters. And this one shows a 1x4 splitter, but with the Juniper solution, you can do up to 128. That's a lot. That's a lot on one 10 connection. But if you're in a retirement community where they're playing their simple games and everything else, and they're going to Facebook and they're just not watching very many videos or anything, that might work for you, 128. But if you go, excuse me, if you go into an environment that's got a lot of gamers and a lot of young people, 128 is not going to work.
Chris, quick question from online. Is there a list of the ACX models that support PON?
Man,
Juniper
I
question.
wish I would have finished that up, because yes, there is. I wish I would have wrote them all out there, because I also wrote, on ACX 5 series, the 54 series. I wish I would have wrote out all the pond. That is a great question, and I was gonna write them out, but I stopped right there. So 54, 48, and then there's some other ones. So the ACX 710 today, the ACX 5448 today, ACX 7024 in the future.
Yes.
And I'm thinking there's some other ones too, but I'm
You
not.
got the PLM right here. She could tell.
Okay. So one of the other things I wanted to go over, I told you guys before about, you go in and you have a bunch of gamers, they're gonna come back and yell at you for carrier grade NAT. Because the first thing they're gonna do is they're gonna be smart, and they're gonna see 164, they're gonna Google 164 and it's gonna say carrier grade NAT, and they're gonna go, nope, I don't want that. Even though they don't know how it works or anything else, they're just like, I don't want that, which is okay. So as a great employee that loves his customers, I'd go in and go, listen, all right, for the first year, I'm gonna give it to you. We will give you a V4, a public IP address, you can work on it. If I can give them another PON device, I would. I'd give them a second PON device and go, hey, test this on this one. Give you a specific amount of time, 3 months, 6 months, a year, and just run some tests to see how you like it. And oh, by the way, I'm gonna use you as a use case. Now, I personally know that carrier grade NAT will work with a bunch of the environments. There's a couple edge cases where carrier grade NAT starts running into some problems. And then it also depends on what your split is. If you're doing a 1 to 32, so one public IP address is for 32 customers, you're gonna have one problem, or you're gonna have less problems. But if you do 1 to 128 or 100 or 256, you're gonna start running into different issues. V6, I cannot say V6 much more. So as we're going through and I do the class of service, I want a wall guard, I want a welcome page. So the customer's not set up yet, and they turn on their modem and they connect, they're not set up. So I want to send them to what's called wall guard, a page where they can automatically click on it and set up their service. I don't want them to call into that. I want them to be able to fill everything out, put in their credit card information, and then move on. They're done. And then once they get in, they get whatever service that they ask for, residential, business class. Now, if you see the IPv4 as a service, what I'm doing there is the spots that do not have IPv4, those are the carrier grade NAT. Those customers will get 100.64 IP address. The customers that get the IPv4 as a service, they will get a public IP address directly on their connection. And then the non-standard class of service that I'd also put in there is a Juniper Mist. So then we could do Juniper Mist in the community and make that ring and make it look good. So, final thoughts. So focus on the customer needs, not the technology. I've heard that once before. That is 100% what's going on here. You need to focus on what the customer needs are, what they need going forward. All they need is an IP address and an internet connection that works. If they need it fast or whatever else, that's important. So look at that, figure out what's going on, make that happen. What's the problem that you're trying to solve? Is the customer randomly dropping what's going on? Get everybody on a call that's needed, that can work on the problem and resolve the customer needs as quickly as you can. Training. I cannot stress enough how important training is. When the first conversation I had with Brian and Nick when we had the interview, the first thing I asked is, hey, what's your training program like? So what kind of training are we gonna be doing? I didn't even have the conversation of what we're gonna be doing or how we're gonna be doing things. I wanna make sure everybody's getting trained and up to date. And that is extremely important. In previous lives, I went through and I bought the Juniper packages for all my employees. I'm like, go in there and go get it. And then I would start going through and auditing that. Send them to NANOC, to other organizations so that they can see other things going on. If your employees, all they're seeing is what you're doing and they're not seeing anything else, they can't bring in new technology. They can't bring in the new things. They can't understand why things could be better if they do X, Y, Z. And I always throw on the Bill Gates quote of 640K is going to be enough for any computer or anybody. Yeah, that's important. And then at the end, I just threw in some glossary items, what IX is, and if you don't know, IX means Internet Exchange in there, that's what it means. All right, questions, comments, concerns? I went fast tonight.
Very good on time. Yeah, you
Yeah, really good.
you killed it. You actually built the break in.
Yeah.
So, no, great. Any questions online?
I got a question. What do you view as obstacles to, or is it even possible to get to the point where we can run IPv6 only? And as we're working towards that goal, you've touched on a few things with IPv6, but what's the best strategy to move in that direction?
So there are some transitions where you can go to IPv6 only. I would put it in the lab and then go through and you can do IPv6 to IPv4, some transition technologies to do that. We are definitely a couple years away from all the environments that you connect to. Even when I did it myself just 2 years ago, I started going V6 and I launched a bunch of communities, and then I was looking at how much they were using V4 versus V6, and that was about 50%. I was actually quite shocked. It was about 50% of the traffic, and this was 2 years ago when we were looking at the carrier grade NAT solution, and it was 50% of the traffic was using V6. We're a couple years away from going only to V6 outside of the organizations for service providers, but you can today. And I know some organizations in Europe that are actually V6 only. And what they do is they do a transition from V6 to V4 to make that happen because they couldn't buy any more space. If you want do some lab time, I mean, I am more than willing to, work on that.
Thank you.
Even G will be your best friend in that environment.
Anybody else? You want to recap, take a quick 10-minute break, and then we'll come back and start with ACX first?
No.
It's MX
first.
Yeah.
MX first, so.
Yeah.
Good job,
All right,
Chris.
we'll take a quick 10-minute break.
Yeah.
Start again at 10:30. Thank you, Chris.
I guess.
Somebody's interview is not available anymore. Are you fucking kidding me?
Your mic's on, whoever's talking.
Okay, unmuted.
Okay, so MX.
MX with Truman is going to be presenting from Juniper.
Yes, hello, folks. I'm online.
This is Truman. Truman, you can go ahead and start whenever you're ready.
Yep.
Okay, sounds good. Do I have control of the slides? Can I advance them myself?
So
Or
you
did you want me to share from my side?
So you can, at the top of the Teams page, there's a take control button up at the navigation bar.
I see it. I see it.
And then you should be able to do that in advance.
Okay, let me just see if that works for me. Oops. Okay, so it says waiting for approval. Oh, there we go. All right. Okay. Good morning, folks. My name is Truman Joe. I am the MX Series product line manager. Or I should say one of them. I'm not the only one. Today I will talk to you about the MX Series portfolio here at Juniper. A quick legal disclaimer, which I'm sure you've already seen today, so we'll skip over that. So to start with, what is kind of set in context MX within the greater Juniper routing portfolio. So these products really span, the routing products span the ACX series, MX series, and PTX series. There will be a speaker, I believe, right immediately after myself that will talk to you about the ACX series. But to sort of give you a high-level context, the ACX series is primarily positioned for the access and aggregation. It's positioned sort of in the Metro Ethernet sort of portion of the network. MX series is the full-service, multi-service edge platform, primarily deployed as a PE devices. And then the PTX series at the higher end is primarily for core and peering. And you'll notice that I used the word primarily because the positioning of the products is not exclusive to the categories that I mentioned. As just a very quick example, MX devices are positioned in not position only, but are actually deployed in a number of core networks, both at the service provider level as well as an enterprise core. So MX spans quite a broad range of capabilities. At the same time, we also see a similar deployment with ACX platforms. They all appear in a number of enterprise cores and even smaller service provider type core networks. And PTX series can be deployed in some sort of light edge roles. They also have a number of features and capabilities that allow them to go beyond just simply core and peering. But the categories that I mentioned are really the primary areas where they are positioned and sort of where we recommend those products to be deployed. Focusing a bit more, sorry, was there a question?
Nope.
No? Okay, all right. Focusing a bit more on MX now. MX is, for lack of a better description, the most trusted brand in Edge. And I know a lot of vendors will probably say that, but I think you really have to look at the statistics where the product is today to get a feel for why we say that. The MX platform has been deployed for 16 plus years at this point in various networks. We have shipped easily over 220,000 MX routers to date. I think the slide is a little bit out of date. I think that number is a bit higher at this point. We are in pretty much all of the major service providers in the world. I think there's like one or two providers that are in Russia or North Korea or something like that where we're not. But short of that, we're pretty much in every service provider in the world. We have a major BNG deployment in worldwide, I would say. 600 million subscriber licenses have been issued since 2016, and the statistics just keep on going. So we've been many years um, uh, selling routers and deploying routers at the edge of the network, and we are going on strong even to this date. In terms of where we see the market today, there's a number of trends that we're addressing with the product. And I think this probably should not be very controversial in terms of these statements. But certainly the key trend which continues is traffic growth. We're seeing primarily in the mobile area, traffic growth continues at a staggering pace, 50% CAGR from the period 2020 through 2030 is the forecast. We're continuing to see lots of remote workers. So, thanks to COVID and the number of employees being forced to work at home, now many of them prefer to work at home. And companies are, of course, trying to get a lot of the workers back in the office for various good reasons. But quite a few of them are continuing to work remotely as now they've gotten used to that notion and have shown themselves to be quite productive. So we still see a significant amount of remote work, which puts more capacity requirements on the network, and we continue to see these requests for features that help support those remote VPNs, for example, to support these remote workers. Security continues to be a threat, and I don't think we'll ever see this go away. And because of that, we continue to add and enhance capabilities and features to the MX platforms to basically ensure that the box remains secure, that it doesn't get hacked, to provide confidence that no one has done anything to create a backdoor in the platform, for example. So you'll see a number of security features, and I'll touch upon them as we go into the various products later in the presentation, what we've added and where. This slide sort of really just talks to the high level drivers. And I think, like I said, I think a lot of these are not really controversial. These are pretty well known forces that are driving the market. More interestingly, I think, is really what we see as the major concerns for most of our customers. And this was a survey done by Heavy Reading. This was not done by Juniper. This was done by Heavy Reading, discussing a number of concerns with what they refer to as the C-suite, so the CEOs, COOs of various networking companies, talking about what really keeps them up at night, what are their main concerns. And sort of the top 7 items are shown here on the screen. Again, this comes straight out of the Heavy Reading survey. Number 1 on the list was network reliability, then followed by traffic growth requirements, in other words, capacity and performance, and then features, and then cost of ownership, and so on. All of these top 7 items, we see these mapping to 3 major areas of requirements for networking products. The first one being sustainability and performance. Sustainability is an interesting area. Sustainability does not refer to simply being a green product. That's not what we mean by sustainability. What we mean here is matching the right product to the right use case, which improves the efficiency of that product. So you're not wasting resources, in other words, by positioning the wrong product, or product that's not really targeted to the specific use case. So that is also an aspect of sustainability. But in addition, both MX and Juniper as a whole has been very involved in building sustainable products from the standpoint of the environment, from the standpoint of minimizing the use of non-environmentally friendly materials or processes or whatnot. So that's an important aspect. The second area is really about security. So, one of the 7 items is literally network security, but security comes into play for a number of other areas as well. So even in the number 1 item, when you're talking about network reliability, security comes into play there to ensure that no one tries to come in and actually take down your network on purpose. So security is an important part. And for the router product portfolio here, Juniper, I think we have been really pushing this notion for quite a few years now, where we feel that a tight integration of security solutions with the router products really makes for a better overall product. So this is the better together notion of the security and the routing sort of collaboration. And you'll see that we are fairly deep into integrating a lot of those security concepts into the product. And finally, the third item that we really see driving a lot of these concerns from the C-suite, or helping to address a lot of the concerns, I should say, from the C-suite, is really support for automation capabilities. Automation helps ensure that there's no misconfiguration in the network, to make sure that the network stays up, that there are no unexpected consequences. And this is more of a concern as networks get more complicated, and we see lots of our customers, they're trying to do more with less. There's less staff, but there's more features and capabilities that the network needs to deliver, and automation is really key to that. So among these 3 pillars, you see the 3 colors on the slide. That maps to the colors you see in the 7 categories that we have listed. In other words, all of these 7 requirements really can be addressed by the 3 key aspects that we show on the right. And really, all of these areas are areas that we are focused on for the MX products. Okay. So for MX I should not say has been, is our multi-services edge platform. There are a number of key aspects of that platform that I think that makes it suited very well for the edge, and why it makes it ideally positioned in that part of the network. For MX, the platform is extremely versatile. What we mean by that is it's fully programmable. We can pretty much implement any feature, any encapsulation, any sort of new protocol that might come along on the platform. So the control plane obviously is very flexible because it's CPU based. There's typically an Intel CPU that drives the control plane. But in addition, the forwarding plane itself is relying on microcode to provide its programming, so we can flexibly control what happens in the data plane. And there's actually a slide later in the deck that I will touch upon, a very good example of being able to adapt the router to a new application, new use case. And the real, I think, metric for determining how programmable something is, because I think you'll see many vendors will make claims that, oh, yes, our solution is programmable, et cetera, but I think the real metric is how often is it possible to implement a feature or a new requirement after the hardware has already shipped. And I think that's the key aspect, after it has already shipped, because the ability to do that ensures one, good investment protection, and it gives the confidence that you will not be continually ripping and replacing hardware in order to meet ever-changing network requirements. I think a very good example of that in the recent past has been support for segment routing, for example. When segment routing was just a vision on a napkin, if you will, we had already been shipping our MBC cards. So MBC 3, 4, 5, etc. We were able to roll out segment routing on MX platform, supported on these older MBC cards after they'd already been shipped and segment routing finally moved to the mainstream, became popular. We were able to roll out all those capabilities on those older MBC cards. And that's something that's very difficult to do for most of our competition. Second item is really about scale. So an MX platform has the highest scale of any platform in the industry. We pride ourselves in having that scale, giving that headroom to ensure that for many years to come, you will have no concern over the ability of the box to scale to what your requirements are. Performance-wise, this box is the MX series platforms, very high performance. We support 400 gig interfaces today. And we are the leader, in fact, in dense 400 gig line cards. So today on, for example, the MX 10K series, we have a 24 port 400 gig line card at 9.6 terabytes. And this is not oversubscribed bandwidth. This is all the ports, all 24 400 gig ports can run at full rate, 100% traffic load. Oops. Oh, shoot. Sorry about that. My phone is acting up. Okay. And then finally, investment protection is the fourth category. We, here at Juniper, I think we provide the best flexibility in terms of one, not only investment protection in the hardware itself, due to the programmability I mentioned before, but also we have the flexibility to allow customers to only pay for that part of the router, that part of the line card that they're actually using, and over time then through the flexible pay-as-you-go options to purchase interfaces or ports when and as you need them. Okay, so the summary of sort of what these four sort of key areas delivered to the product is really flexibility, performance, and investment protection. So those are the sort of the themes for MX. MX, thanks to its flexibility and programmability, it really can address pretty much any use case you can imagine. So I did say earlier on in this presentation that MX is ideally designed to be positioned at the edge of the network, but can also be used as a core device. For example, we are deployed as a major peering device in a number of the internet exchanges in the world. In fact, I believe we're in every single internet exchange at this point. But in many of them, we are the number one deployed box within that exchange. So here is just a sort of a high-level listing of a broad span of use cases that we can address with the box, along with sort of the key features that the box supports in order to support those use cases. So one thing to keep in mind here is that when you see a list like this, again, you know, other products in the industry will make similar claims that we can address any use case. But one of the key things about the MX, which I think which I really like to convey, is that not only is it able to do all of these use cases, but it can do all of them simultaneously. What we mean by that is that a single router can be configured for various ports to do different things. Like you can have business edge services and residential edge services at the same time. It can also be you know, an enterprise device, both for WAN, edge, or DCI, all of these capabilities. There's no restriction on saying, well, if you do this use case and that use case, then these other ones you can't configure for whatever reason. And part of that is thanks to the flexibility of the tree architecture, but I think that's a really key reflection on both investment protection, to be able to do whatever you want with your device, and to allow all of these to operate simultaneously is really a key flexibility aspect of the platform. So the box is really architected for a number of different use cases, as I mentioned. The key here is that not only is it completely flexible, it is supported by Paragon for the services automation. So this is our automation portfolio. I believe you probably will have a speaker that will talk to the automation piece as well during this EBC day that you have. We also have, as I mentioned earlier, integration with our security services. There is a solution that we have. We have partnered with a company called Carrero to provide a DDoS mitigation solution, as well as we provide constant updates in terms of security to the box through our Sec Intel feeds. Stay on the topic of security for just a moment. I mentioned earlier that we support a number of different security capabilities in the box. On this slide, I just wanted to highlight some of the various security capabilities of the platform. So starting with the first one here, we have on the slide, starting from the left, there's what we refer to as router hardware integrity. So what this refers to is that we do have support for TPM 2.0 on the platform. It's available on a number of the platforms today. There's a couple more that we're rolling out in the very near future, and so then we'll soon have it on across all the various platforms to support TPM 2.0. This will provide device ID support as well as secure ZTP support on the platform. For those who may not fully understand what device ID support refers to, the idea behind device ID is to provide a unique, provable identity to the platform to ensure that it has not been, the platform itself has not been replaced with a unsecure, intentionally replaced with an unsecure alternate. So basically, if someone wants to create backdoor access into your network, the best way to do that is to intercept the router from the factory to your site and replace it with something that they can control. By having sort of these digital IDs that are guaranteed to be locked with the appropriate keys, we can ensure that these devices have not been manipulated. We can ensure that the software that runs on the device they come from Juniper, that it has not been hacked, for example. So these are just methods to ensure protection of the supply chain from the vendor, which is ourselves, to the customer, like yourself. In addition to just securing the device itself, we also want to make sure that the information that is transmitted on the networks is protected. We see lots of requests these days, and for the past several years, in fact, for encryption technology on the devices to ensure that data security. A lot of our data center customers are pushing for this, and a lot of that is driven by government regulations, government requirements. When our customers have government customers, they have these requirements. But the support for MACsec on the interfaces is key, and we today support MACsec on all of the cards that are shipping with new packet forwarding engines. And the reason I can say all is because the MACsec support is supported directly in those PFEs using a built-in crypto acceleration engine. In addition to MACsec support, we are about to roll out, so this is a roadmap feature, but it should be coming out in 2023, we will have IPsec support in line on the newest line cards. These are the Trio 6. I'll provide more detail on which cards those are in just a moment. But with the latest generation cards, we are planning to roll out, as I said, inline IPsec. So third item, so now that we've secured the device itself, we secured the data that's transmitted in and out of the device. The third item is to prevent denial of service attacks. So that's the Carrera partnership that I just mentioned on the previous slide, so I'm not going to go into that again. But that is also a key part of it, to prevent attacks on the device from taking it out of service. And then finally, another key aspect is really the support of high-scale firewall filters. High scale in the sense that we can support very many firewalls and firewall terms. The scale that we support on the cards is 256,000 firewall terms can be supported on the packet forwarding engine. So this allows flexible use of configurations on various filters in order to filter out real-time threat. We do support BGP flow spec to allow for dynamic insertion of firewall filters as well. All right. Did want to mention as well that we have support for what we refer to as active assurance. This is a in-network measurement to guarantee that the SLA, for lack of a better term, is maintained across the network. So many times networking problems are not discovered because they're not outright failures. A lot of times you will see perhaps a router is overloaded, there's too much traffic on a link, etc. By using active assurance, which is supported through our Paragon automation suite, we're able to take active measurements in the network, active as in there is synthetic traffic injected into the network, to actually see what the impact to that injected traffic would be at various points in the network, to determine if the network is performing up to expectations. Thanks to the fact that we can inject this traffic live into the network and take those measurements, many times we're able to detect network problems before even your customers may have noticed, or your users of your network will have noticed or reported any problems. All right, so let's now dive a little bit into the silicon that is used to support the products. I think the heart of the MX system is really about the silicon. The latest generation silicon is what we refer to as the Trio 6. Trio is the overall PFE architecture that we've been using for a number of years. It started back in 2009, and we have just shipped this past year the 6th generation of that silicon. That silicon does appear in both our compact platforms as well as our modular platforms. It provides increased power efficiency over the previous generation. The Trio 6 ASIC is a 1.6 terabit per PFE ASIC. We are able to support 9.6 terabits per slot. That is, for those who simplify not having to do the math, six of these PFE packages on a line card. These line cards, thanks to the Trio 6, can support 10 gig all the way to 400 gig. We didn't list all the speeds there, but due to the space limitations on the slide, we didn't want to make it too cramped. So one of the list of the popular ones, but in addition to 10, 100, 400, we do support the 25, 50 gig as well. And as I mentioned, all of these can be supported with MACsec, thanks to the on-chip crypto acceleration engine. In terms of the performance, the scale, it's sort of listed here on the slide. We are able to support 12 million FIB entries. 80 million RIB is really more a reflection of the routing engine that's associated with the platform. 16,000 BRS, 4 million flows, 256,000 filters can be supported. The chip does have 128,000 queues. We use a great number of queues to support our BNG style features and deployments. The chip is capable of driving 400 gig, as I mentioned, and on the line cards where we have put Trio 6, they are designed to support ZR as well as ZR Plus, which is becoming a very popular interface type for us. Looking a little bit into the future, this is not yet shipped, but wanted to share with you what's coming down the pipe. There is a Trio 7 that's being planned. We do expect this to be the chip itself to be available in sometime in the 2024 time period, probably closer to the end of the year, be my guess. There's not a specific date set for that yet, so take the date with a grain of salt. Current design is a 3.2 terabit PFE, so we're doubling the performance from Trio 6. The key aspect here is that with this new PFE, we can support 800 gig interface. That's the goal. One of the key goals of the Trio 7 is to support that 800 gig. Now, I know you're probably thinking, and many of our customers think, wow, we're just starting with 400 gig. It'll be a while before we need 800. So yes, that's true, but in terms of chip and board design, we do anticipate the market really looking to start adopting the 800 gig sometime in the 2025, 2026 time period. So we are getting ready for that adoption curve. The new chip will be based on 3nm technology, which will provide improved power efficiency compared to the current generation. We expect that to be somewhere in the 33% power improvement range. Okay. All right. So this slide I'm just wanting to show to convey really about the comment I made earlier about how flexible the MX platform is. So what this slide really is talking about is a collaboration that occurred between Juniper Networks and a research group at MIT. What they were looking at was ways that they could improve the machine learning, the way they could improve machine learning for a number of different applications. So what this is in machine learning, in the sort of the training phase of typical machine learning algorithms, there are many passes over the training data, and what the way that's typically done is you have a large number of servers that are going over the data. It does its calculation. I won't dive into the details of how that's done. If you're interested in the details, there's a link on the slide pointing to the paper that goes into a lot of details of what the applications are and what is done. But the short story here is that all these servers on the network then have to send information to one another, and that information then has to be aggregated and redistributed. So if you think about how this works, it's servers talking over a network, sending data back and forth over the network, and operations needing to be done on the data in various forms. So a natural way to think about this is, hey, if the data is going over the network anyway, and the data then operations need to be done on the data and then redistributed over that network again, you could make this faster by having this operation be done in the network itself. So this is really addressing the class of what we refer to as in-network applications. So this machine learning is just one example of such an application. And so what they took was a off-the-shelf, so this is a cards that we sell, so we didn't make any special hardware for this. They took an off-the-shelf router, a line card that we ship today, using some programming. So this is just all done through the microcode, for example. That type of program is what we're talking about. Within the Trio chip, they were able to then identify these machine learning packets that come into the network. They would do the various operations that needed to be done and multicast that information back out to the servers. And by doing this, they were able to achieve a 1.8 times improvement in terms of the amount of time it took to complete the training task. So again, this is really just to speak to the fact that Trio is extremely programmable and you're able to address sort of unforeseen use cases that may come up in the future. So going with an MX type platform should give you the confidence that you will be able to address new requirements, new demands on your network in the years to come. Okay, so for those of you who are interested, as I mentioned, the link to the paper is actually on the slide here. So obviously anything that's discussed in the paper is this is a publicly accessible research document. So none of that information located in the paper is considered proprietary. And it does go into quite a bit of detail about aspects of the Trio architecture and why they were able to do this and how they were able to achieve that improvement. So for those of you interested, I recommend downloading the paper and giving it a read. It's actually not that long of a paper, so you'll find it very interesting. Okay. All right. That said, so Trio 6 really provides a number of capabilities thanks to the architecture of Trio itself. A couple things I just wanted to note here. Trio 6 is a single chip implementation of a PFE, which is in contrast to some other solutions that are out in the market. There are multi-chip solutions, which make multi-chip is inherently less efficient than single chip because of the limitations of the pin bandwidth to send information between the chips, for example. So the single chip really provides for better density of the solution and better efficiency in terms of power of that solution as well. Within the Trio architecture, resources are dynamically allocated, unlike alternate methods, which hard partition resources, which make it very difficult to implement an arbitrary mix of use cases in the system. And because of the way we implement counters in memory, there's effectively there's no scale that limits the use of those counters and how they can be allocated, again, because we don't hard partition anything within the packet forwarding engine. Okay. All right. With that, let me talk a little bit about the product portfolio itself. So up to this point, it's really been about the background, the market with the drivers, the sort of the high level features and capabilities of the product. But let's now dive into sort of specifics into some of the products that we do offer that deliver all these capabilities. So the portfolio, current portfolio I'm showing here, starting on the left, a couple of compact MX devices. There's an MX204, which is a 1 RU high device, an MX304, which is the newest compact MX platform, which is 2 RU high. I'll get into a bit more detail of the 304 in just a moment. And then we go into our modular platforms. The modular platforms include the 240, 4960, which has really been the platforms that started the whole MX product line, that 13, 14 years ago. Actually, sorry, at this point, it's closer to 16 years ago. The MX 2010, 2020 are sort of our larger platforms, really targeted to very high capacity networks. And then we have the MX 10,000 series and the 10,004 and 10,008. These are our newest platforms, really optimized for high density, high throughput. And then on the right side of the slide, we're showing a number of the cards, the newer cards, not all the cards, obviously, the newer cards that we have supported on the MX10K series. And we'll go into a little bit of detail for each of the cards as we go through the product descriptions. So starting with the compact portfolio, the 304 is our latest shipping compact portfolio. It's our next gen 400 gig capable compact MX device, as I mentioned, 2 RU in height. In the diagram here, you'll see that there are 4 slots in the front of the router. Upper 2 are labeled as routing engine. The bottom 2 are labeled as interface cards. So the top left slot can only be a routing engine. The bottom slots can only be interface cards. The upper right slot is a dual use slot, so you can configure this based upon the needs of your network. You can put in either a routing engine or an interface card, or you can choose to not populate it at all. That's true of the other interface card slots as well. That dual use slot basically allows for the following trade-off. You can either have a redundant control plane, so you would need a routing engine in each of the left and right upper slots, and that would give you a 3.2 terabit configuration, as each interface card is a 1.6 terabit capability. Or you can have a single routing engine, so you will lose the routing engine redundancy, but then you can support 4.8 terabits of throughput. And that would be a viable configuration if you already have topological redundancy in your network, so that if the routing engine were to fail, your network would still be up, relying on that topological redundancy rather than control plane redundancy within each node. Okay. The devices do support MACsec and are able to support Class C timing, and will operate in the 0 to 40 degrees C temperature range, 6,000 feet. The routing engine is an Intel-based routing engine. It does use virtualization technology, which has been true of our routing engines for a number of years now, targeted to very high scale routing applications. The CPU is an 8-core CPU, has 128 gig of RAM on it. So that is the most of any routing engine that we offer today, and 200 gig SSDs. The interface cards are, they support 16 ports of QSFP optics. Every one of the ports can support up to 100 gig QSFP 28 optics. 4 of the ports, those are the orange colored numbers in the image, support QSFP 56DD, the 400 gig style optics. The card does not support oversubscription. So, and it's also a 1.6 terabit card. So if you plug in a 400 gig optic, the 3 ports right around that port cannot be used for anything else, because if they were, then you would end up oversubscribing the card, obviously. One thing to note, I did mention earlier that Trio 6 supports 10 gig through 400 gig and all the interfaces in between. This MIC is based upon Trio 6, but also supports 1 gig. So we have added additional logic onto this interface card to allow it to support 1 gig, to provide that additional flexibility for our customers. So you do get 1 gig all the way to 400 gig, and you do have the MACsec support as well. Okay. All right, overall dimensions, it's a very compact platform, 610 millimeters front metal to back metal, accounting for cable bend radiuses and whatnot. It will fit within an 800 millimeter closed rack. Okay, and then the 204, again, it's a compact router, 1 RU high. This is based upon our Trio 4 chipsets. It does have 4 QSFP ports, as well as 8 SFP ports on the device. So you can support 400 gig. And again, the MX device, this is not oversubscribed. So if you plug in 400 gig ports, you can't use the 8 SFP ports any longer. But if you don't fully populate the QSFPs with 100 gigs, then you can use the SFP ports as well. All right. I think I'm running a little tight on time here. Do I have a few extra minutes, or should I wrap it up? I'll take silence as I can go a few extra minutes.
Sorry, it was muted.
We should definitely talk about the,
Yeah.
the 10K cards.
Okay.
I think if we can, on the 10K cards, if we can focus on the 96 and the upcoming 48.
Okay, well, we can do that. We can do that. I'll spend a few extra minutes. Sorry about that. I didn't, I think I spent too much time talking at the beginning. So, all right, let me wrap this up quickly, but we'll focus a bit on the 9600 and the 4800 cards. So MX 10K, oops. Okay, just quickly, it's our universal chassis solution. 4-slot and 8-slot options are available. We do have, sort of mentioned, LC 9600 card. There's an LC 4800 card. There's also an LC 480 card that we ship today. And then there'll be a card coming that supports 800 gig that doesn't have a name yet. So jumping ahead a little bit here to the line cards, which is probably the most interesting piece of all this. The LC 9600 card is based upon Trio 6, 9.6 terabit capacity. This is the card I was referring to when we were talking about what Trio 6 is capable of supporting. There are 24 ports, 24 optical cages, I should say, supported on the faceplate of this card. These are QSFP form factor. We are able to support 400 gig optics. In fact, we can support 400 gig ZR in every single port. Every single port, in addition, can support breakout, so that you can do a 4x100 in each one of those ports for a total of 96 100 gigs. We also do support the 2x100 gig optics if you prefer not to have shared fate on the breakout cable. So the 2x100 has individual mini CS connectors on the optics so that you can individually plug in either one. And we also support the single 100 gig QSFP optics as well. In addition, all the ports can support 40 gig. It can support 4x10 breakout, 4x25, etc. The card has 768,000 Qs in total across the 6 PFEs that are implemented on the card. It is fully interoperable with the LC2101 and the LC480 cards. The LC9600 does have support, as I mentioned, for both the native 100 gig optics 2x100 as well as the 4x100. In this diagram, we're just showing the various connection options for the optics. So the 100 and the 2x100 does have independent cable hookups. We use the LC style connectors for the 100 and then the mini CS for the 2x100. 4x100 is the octopus style cable, the 4-to-1 breakout. The LC4800 is a new card that's coming out first half of 24. So it is about a few quarters away still. But we're making good progress. We are on track for the schedule, so everything's looking good. This is a 4.8 terabit card, so half the capacity of the 9600 card. There is 44 ports that support that break out into 40 SFP style optics and 4 QSFP style optics. Let me explain the differences there. On the 40 SFP style optics, we support up to SFP 56DD. All 40 of those ports can drive the SFP 56DD for 100 gig support. The QSFP optics go to 400 gig. So with this one card, you can get both 1 gig through 100 gig in the SFP optics, and then at the same time, you can get up to 400 gig uplinks using the QSFP ports. All the ports will support MagSec, as it's all based upon YT, so it's a fairly standard based upon because it's based on the PFE, you can support MagSec. It is Class C timing ready. You will need a new routing engine in the MX10K platform. It does support Class C, but before that routing engine is available, you can do Class B timing on the card. And it will support all of the existing use cases that MX supports. So this is a fully integrated card in the system. We do expect this card to match very well with the 10,004, and it will be supported on 10,008 as well. But thanks to the mix of uplink style 400 gig ports and 100 gig, the majority 100 gig ports, we see this as a very good option for those customers looking for high density 1 gig to 100 gig options. Okay, let me just touch very briefly on the LC480 for those that are interested in that. This is our 1 gig, 10 gig card based upon the EA ASIC. This is the Trio 4, and it flexibility supports 1 gig and 10 gig, as well as has 512,000 queues. Okay, and with that, I'm just going to wrap up. Sorry for running over a little bit of time here. I know I'm trying to keep this on track. I'll just throw up the slide on the roadmap showing the 800 gig line card that we have planned based upon the new Trio ASIC that I had mentioned earlier. Okay, any questions? Again, my apologies for running over. Spent a little more time than I had planned, but hopefully it was a good use of your time. Any questions?
When will the 4,800 pricing information be fully publicly available? And then is first half of 24, is that ordering or shipping?
First half of 24 is shipping, but in full transparency, what we're talking about there is basically shipping in the June timeframe. So first half 24, but very near the end of 24 for shipping. We expect pricing to be publicly released on the price list at the very end of this year, very early next year. And once the pricing is released, we'll be accepting orders at that point.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, well, if not, thank you everyone for your time. I appreciate it. And I'll pass you off to the next speaker. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Truman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you guys want to take a break? Bathroom break, drink break?
Do 5?
Fine.
Sure.
Quick 5.
Yeah. It's warmer in here.
Yeah, they fixed it.
Now I'm getting hot.
Unfortunate timing. It's just, it's not gonna work.
Look at that shirt. Does that say Metro?
Yes, I designed it.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. That's awesome.
You want one?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, Chad, I'd
Next
love
time.
to too.
Next time.
I do need to know the sizes.
Okay.
We'll send you an email.
Yeah,
I love
yeah,
it.
that'd be awesome.
I got this shirt in Miami.
You guys bring some customers.
Yeah.
I don't have a Metro patch.
It's not like a.
Oh, geez.
You're somewhere.
Just kidding. But I will need to know the
Okay,
sizes.
all right.
These are limited edition. by the way.
Ah, see what? So Chad and I need this. We walk around and be like, whoa.
Exactly.
I know you're not interested here, you're interested on this side.
We're saying that shipping is.
Ashton Martin,
They
right?
have some
Yeah,
market shirts.
yeah.
I thought that was pretty interesting. So that's why I didn't really bring that up, but I wanted you to have the transparency to see it. So, just wanted to-
Let's see.
That's interesting.
You're large. right?
Yeah, it should work.
Large.
Yeah.
We can certainly. Are we not taking?
Maybe a medium.
Medium one?
Get a large.
They do run a little
Yeah, we can
late.
take like.
Oh,
a
do they?
quick
Okay.
look. No, you're good.
All right, medium, all right.
There, that's all.
Especially like newer golf shirts are shrinking.
We're just getting bigger.
I don't know, like yes and no.
What would you?
I don't know, that's,
We're eating.
yeah.
We do it here. We're getting cheap for lunch. Let's see the mood is.
Right.
That is.
Yeah, no.
It likes to move on its own. I said the slides like to move on their own.
Jesus. Masochist you are. I gotta do what you gotta do.
Health insurance.
Yeah.
I've got to keep doing this.
Yeah.
We can get started now. if we
No,
want.
we said 500.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Did I? Did you?
They did.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did, which is you took 2 minutes.
And I was like, gonna get started, holy cow.
Yeah.
Technically, we're still right on time.
Yeah. No.
If we do have time, we use restaurants.
Yeah.
Unacceptable.
11:15.
11:15. 128 is not terrible.
I know.
OCD is kicking in.
OCD is kicking in.
Of yours.
Yeah.
Yes.
Time?
Yes.
I know it.
Are we still taking a break?
Yeah, 2 more minutes. Give everybody, get the bathroom break in now. Great. Just get that out of the way over the weekend and,
Yeah. I told her, I was like, 24 hours to take a bath, it's good to go.
yeah, she was mad at me because I told her she couldn't come to the office today.
Wow, good thing.
Well, I was like, I didn't tell you not to work, I just told you not to come in. There's a difference.
You felt like you heard her voice yesterday.
Yeah, I talked to her yesterday. I was like, you're not allowed to come to the office today.
Oh, someone's sick?
Lindsay.
Oh, Lindsay.
So I was like, she's like, I have this and this and this and that. Did I go, and you can do that from home? And she's like, oh.
It's nice seat here.
Oh,
No, you
very
get the heat
warm.
out of the-
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, they're getting more,
She
oh, that's
woke
fine.
up, she texted, she's like, I think I need urgent care today. And that's big for her to do.
Yeah,
Was she in the office yesterday?
no.
No.
No, we had a couple of people get sick. Chris got COVID, but he's in Jacksonville. So
Yeah,
Oh, really?
you keep that there.
Mhm.
yeah. Michael was.
You're on Alton Road, right?
I think Michael might have had COVID.
Yeah.
That's just number 514.
1521 Alton Road, number 5.
Yeah, I get it.
Yep.
yeah.
Because Jackie was sick too.
I saw it on my hammer.
But like they have like lighter than I've ever heard COVID to. Like Chris was like, I just felt run down.
Yeah.
The only reason why he tested his wife made him, because his wife is
Right,
8 months
she's-
pregnant.
Yeah.
She's about to pop.
Yeah,
She
so I
can
say
make
months
one in the
pregnant, so she
garage.
cracked the whip.
Yeah.
He said, you would believe how hard it is to find a test. I'm like, no, I actually do believe it. Nobody cares anymore.
Yeah.
I guess that's the 5. And
Okay, we're good to start.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, can everybody on the call hear me properly?
We're still
I assume.
typing muted.
Yes, we can.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So again, my name is Aisha. I am ACX 7000 Portfolio Product Manager. And I have recently joined Juniper, a product management team. I come from Cisco, so I have a lot of background with NCS 5500, 5700 portfolio. ACX 7000 is an exciting new platform, and I'm happy to be here. And thank you for the opportunity also to Imperium Data. Great partnership, really appreciate it. Okay, so in today's session, we'll cover a little bit about market trends and the direction that Juniper is headed towards in service provider, because Juniper was mostly around enterprise and data center. So this is a new market we are tapping in. We'll talk about ASIC 7000 portfolio at a high level. We'll also cover some software updates and innovations, and then followed by our success story, and we'll close it. Hopefully, we can make it on time so the guys can go on lunch. And these people know I've been repeating in every call. I get hungry, I get angry.
Yeah.
So
Oh, no, you gotta be getting angry right now.
yes, I'm good so far.
Okay.
This is our legal disclaimer. I assume we all have NDAs and we're following that. Okay, so let's just talk about the market trends. So what is happening in the metro, the service provider environment? What we are saying here is that metro is a new edge. And why we say so is that traditionally the traffic was flowing north and south, but with all this pandemic and so much traffic is moving We also see a lot of new traffic patterns are rising, so that means that east and west, a lot of traffic is moving around within the metro. What it turns out to be that all the services are getting terminated at the edge, so the services experiences are happening within the metro. And as you very well mentioned about COVID, but I also like to highlight about Gen Z. Gen Z like to do rendering online. There's a lot of workloads happening. And my own son, for example, he's doing his homework on the mobile phone. So a lot of devices are connected. This is the world we live in now. So we are anticipating the metro traffic will go by 500% by 2027. Now, what it does for us as the vendors to look at opportunity, how we can come up with a better ecosystem for the service provider tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, to make sure that we have the best solutions so you all have the best experience for your end subscribers or users for next 7 to 10 years and beyond. Now, how do we do that? Should we continue doing the way we do things, which is traditional metro? Or should we come up with something new? So we decided to take some challenge. Anyways, we were entering into a new category, as a new category in the market with a service provider. Juniper was not known in a service provider environment. And we said, okay, while we're taking this risk, let's just look back and see how we can make our innovation better, not only around systems, but the whole ecosystem. So here we're talking about operations, system, and architecture. I should just use my hands, that's better. So when we talk about ecosystem, let's just start with systems, right? Traditionally, the systems that we used to build, including Cisco, Juniper, in the past, we were all very much focused on traffic growth. That means capacity driven. You need to create a new deployment project. Okay, go add on another router, remove the existing router because it cannot meet that capacity. This is not something that is sustainable long run because your budgets are getting flat. You want low cost over time. Your subscribers are getting more picky. They expect experiences end to end. So we came up with systems which are going to be able to last in your network for 7 to 12 years. That's our claim. And we back it up by the efficiency and by the innovation that we're providing in our routers. We did not stop at the systems. We don't talk about products, we talk about solution. So that's where comes the automation piece. Juniper already has a Paragon automation on-premise suite. We took it to the next level of simplification. What it means is we put it on the cloud. So that's AI-enabled and cloud delivered. I will talk about it in the next slide. And then on the architecture perspective, we used to think in the past security as an afterthought thing, even the active assurance, more like a hype word as to say so. But now we are embedding the agents inside the router so that the network becomes a sensor. And that's what True talked about when he talked about the whole network management and quality being managed by the active assurance. So you can have any service at any time with full resilience so the network is up and running, and it's as well as secure. In terms of architecture, we have built the architecture ground up, which means that in the past it used to be scale up, now we can scale out as well as scale up. And in the past, the networks used to be more distributed. You have a mobile network, you have a business network, you have a residential network. Now the networks are converging. But convergence also means we need to make sure that the network is resilient. And that's what we are making sure in our architecture all the way down, that's being taken care of. And all is managed through, again, Paragon automation, and as well as our active assurance agents, and the embedded zero trust security that I'll talk in a minute. If I would like you to take something from this slide, I will like you to take that it's all about simplification, it's all about economies of scale, it's about longevity in your network. We did a recent survey with a tier 2 and tier 3 market around the globe. This data is coming from 41% from the US market. And what you guys are telling us, this is your problem statement, this is what you're looking for. What we say is that can Cloud Metro, does it all for you? The answer is yes. And our SVP, Brennan Gibbs, he's very fond of Avengers, Marvel, all products are around that line. So what do you get in the end is the Infinity Stone. That's the message I'm gonna take, you guys to take it back home. It's a little bit fun, but he's fun and our team loves it. So in terms of cloud metro solution, we have, again, operations, system, and architecture. Let's just talk about automation. So in automation, we have AI-enabled automation, which means it's mimicking human behavior. But not only that, it's also enabling the machine learning capabilities, which means that it's learning the data pipelines, and it's doing all the predictive analysis, not only from one customer network, but all the networks globally. So it's studying all the networks that it's associated with, and it's making sure that the future, that predictive analysis is helping in solving the problems faster. It's always monitoring, managing the networks. In the end, what happens is that your users don't even get to know, and your network issues get fixed. And that's the level of quality of autonomous and intelligent network you want to get to. Now, all the service providers do talk about simplification, and that's why we are enabling this Paragon automation on the cloud, but it's also available on premise. Lastly, I would say that automation is a very hype word. In general, everybody in vendor talks about it. But I understand from this survey that I was talking about that you guys care about outcomes in terms of business outcomes, and outcomes in terms of reducing the churn, in terms of costs, in terms of efficiency, in terms of time to market. So that is what we kept in mind when we did the Paragon automation, and your survey actually resonates what we are trying to build. So basically, we're building something that you have asked us for. Now, I already talked about this sustainable architecture, all the new functions and protocols like we talked about telemetry or network slicing, everything we are focused on for the better future for 5G and beyond service enablement. And then Juniper optics, yes, we are focused on ensuring that legacy networks are supported, as well as the PON solution is provided for the fiber to the home kind of environments, along with removing the transponder need and come up with our own co-developed 400 gig ZR plus optics. Now, these optics are not the ones that are coming from Acacia partnership. We still have roadmap with them, but these are the co-developed that we did ourselves. And part of the reason we did ourselves is because we wanted to manage the cost, we wanted to be efficient in the market. We heard you guys, you said that we don't have much focus on optics, so we are developing and we are working on it. So just stay tuned with us. We are also working on 800 gig optics in the roadmap for 2025 for the whole metro, not just the long range. Now, on the Paragon automation, as I was saying, we want to reduce the time when it's being notified that there's an issue in the network and the time when it's resolved. And Paragon automation as a service is already doing it for us. So your NOC engineer doesn't have to go and figure out where exactly the issue is happening, or try to remove the optics and try to figure out, okay, which optic is bad. It's already telling you which optic is heating up, which power supply issue, which fan is issue, and you get all that notification on your phone. I will skip this slide because I already spoke about it. So this is a demonstration of our WAN AI ops use case, and why we are building AI use cases is because we think the network is getting complex. It makes more sense to simplify it for our network engineers so that they can focus on something better, something more stringent that they need, instead of trying to figure out why the network is down and where exactly it's down. You don't want them to be stuck between the cables and try to figure out where the issue is happening. So and also same for the onboarding use case, that you don't want your network engineers to be spending a lot of time trying to onboard the use cases, get the network up and running for the new deployments, or adding on new use cases. You want a lot of autonomousness in that, because it will keep your skills staff to focus on something else, but it also help you retain your staff because skills shortage is real, right? And it's happening in all the industry. And what you get in the end is total time is minutes. And how it happens is, for example, you have a router, it ships from the factory with a TPM 2.0 chipset, which is Dev ID enabled, and then when it comes to the your side, you basically take the QR code and you scan it. It will connect it to this Paragon automation application, and it will give you the step-to-step guidance, making sure hardware and software is correctly plugged in. Authentication takes place for hardware and software, and within minutes you get your system up and running for your deployment instead of 1 day or 2 days. That's the efficiency we're getting with Paragon automation as a service. I think Chu talked about this portfolio in nice detail. I would just say in summary that all these portfolios are complementing each other. ACX is not new. ACX has always been around, but we were experimenting initially with it. It was not a major focus of Juniper. Given the strategy of developing the service provider market, we came up with 7,000 portfolio, and that's where we have some new products that you see. They're starting with 7,000, and these are built upon Broadcom Jericho 2 second generation. The old one, which is like 5 something or 710, they are based on the first generation. And I'll tell you what is the benefit of doing that. And then our focus is on access and aggregation, but because of the Broadcom Jericho 2 and our focus beyond Jericho 2, we are able to do some level of edge functions. Lean edge is nothing other than just doing good enough edge. We are not, we are overlapping, which is a good thing, but we are not replacing MX, because MX, if you need a high scale dense functions, you continue using MX. But if you need enough edge functions, you can consider ACX.
Isn't there a chassis ACX that's going to get released later this year? I thought there was a big modular chassis based.
That's solved with MXYT,
Okay.
and there's a PTX coming up.
So they're not, that's not actually going to get developed?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
Okay, so let's just understand the basics, right? What goes inside the router. So basically you have a data packets going in and out, and this is your forwarding engine. There's some manipulation happening, but PFE is not the only chipset that goes on the motherboard of your router. There are other important components that go in, right? Like if you need a timing, you say, oh, I need a better timing. We'll come up with timing FPGA chipset, and we'll put it on the router. It might be Juniper product, it might be third-party vendor like CPU from Intel. So your router is always mix of third-party component as well as your own component. So my message to you guys is that keep your mind open. It's more about mix and match is always there in any kind of router that you buy from us or from the other vendor. Important thing to highlight and notice that what exactly are you looking for, and are you getting at the right functions and right price point, you go with that kind of router, whether it's MX, whether it's PTX, whether it's ACX. Second thing I want to highlight here is that when you tell us, oh, I need a MACsec, it means that, okay, I need to put in MACsec on the router, but if I put in, it means adding cost. But you guys ask, oh, I need less cost. So what can we do about it? So we look ahead and we talk with Broadcom, and they came up with something called Jericho 2C plus chipset. And what if I tell you that that chipset is capable of doing MACsec and IPsec both on the chip itself? What it does to you is reduce your costs. What it does for us is that we are able to come up with a little bit simpler router design and also give you what you need in the market and focus our attention to something else because the chipset is already doing it, and it enables the power efficiency as well for us. So it helps with the power. So those kind of innovations are happening. This slide you might have seen in the past in any of the EBCs. What I would like to highlight here is that every vendor in the market that you choose today, there are only two kinds of architectures exist. One is called the run to completion, other one is called the pipeline architecture. MX is built on run to completion, that was Truman was mentioning about. If you need huge logical scale, multi-packet processing functions, you go with, that's why we designed MX, and you go with MX. It gives you a lot of flexibility, better QS management, better subscriber. But if you're looking for just good enough scale, good enough capacity, low cost, better power efficiency, faster in terms of low latency, then you use PTX or ACX. And that is why my message to you guys is that why we designed ACX based on pipeline architecture, because of low latency, because of faster packet processing, good enough scale. In a metro, you need a lot of high bandwidth capacity. You need low power efficiency, high power reduction or high power efficiency. And also, in general, it's cheaper for us, and you want a cheaper box as well. So that is why we built ACX and PTX based on the pipeline architecture. And ACX is, again, it's Jericho 2 Broadcom-based DNX chipset portfolio. PTX is based on our own home-run ASIC. Now let's just talk about Aston Martin because Juniper, and I'm waiting one here. Juniper is partnering with Aston Martin. You might already know. We are very, very inspired by the design, and you will see our chassis as well. They are pretty much following the same color pattern. The idea here is that we talked with Aston Martin when we were building A67000. We said, hey, by the way, do you put a big engine to make the car run faster? What do you guys do basically? They said, no. It's not just the engine. There's a lot of dynamics that goes in it. And what we learned is that if you go into Formula One racing, there's not only Aston Martin, there are other companies as well, car racing companies. In the world, there are only 4 to 5 engines. So that means all the companies that are car companies that are entering in Formula One, they all are possibly using similar engines. So where does the difference comes in? The difference comes in all these different parameters. So we compare that to us, like, okay, you need to make sure the driver needs to be safe, you need to make sure about the aerodynamics, you need to look at the tires, you need to look at suspension, all those kind of parameters. Similarly, for us, we said, okay, how do we drive focus? Should we put a big chipset? What do we do? So we came up with the different kind of chipset flavors based on individual box requirement, but our focus remained on power efficiency, space efficiency, better performance, low latency, and making sure it's secure, and also there's a telemetry metrics insights put in play. So in the end, it's all about balance. It's not that you just put a big engine on a car and it will make it run. That's not the story here. Now let's just quickly talk about A67000 portfolio. So you see we have like small boxes. We also have some little bit bigger boxes, and then we have like a 5 RUs. And why so many variations? Again, it's based on what you guys always ask us for. Sometimes you're looking for 1 RU, sometimes you're looking for 3 RU, sometimes you're looking for 5 RU based on your use case requirements. Sometimes you ask us you need indoor or outdoor. So we have all different kind of flavors, max-sec, no max-sec, and so on. So our routers can go all the way like 80 gig to 4.8 tera. And this is not talking about oversubscribe, but in general, we can say that with the new FIP, for example, that's coming up, we can go up to 25 tera. So the green boxes that you see over here are the new products that we are developing that are at a very early phase. So that's why we're not talking much about it, not showing you the concept picture. But stay tuned with us. In next few months, we'll have a little bit more insights.
Another question.
Yes.
Is that 1.6, is that going to be in like the 7024 line where it's going to be a hardened device, or is that like a multi-RU? Where's that on?
This is a 1 RU. It will come in 2 flavors, indoor and outdoor, possibly 2025 with Jericho 3 or Qumran 3.
Okay.
And the indoor and outdoor interfaces would be a little bit different because we're trying to optimize on the cost for you guys.
Right.
Now let's talk about 7024 portfolio. 7024 portfolio was launched last year around October timeframe. So far we have sold over 2,500 plus boxes. So this is doing really well in the market. It is a nice sleek box. It's 1 RU. I wish I could have brought it, but it's at another event. I was really trying to get hands on, but unfortunately no. But hey, this box is a access performance box, but it's also being used in some kind of kind of roles that we are seeing in the market. So it's a good cell-side router, carrier Ethernet use case, even aggregation to certain level. This box is hardened. That means it can run from -40 to 65 C. It has redundancy for its power supplies and fan. And it is, again, all of our routers are following the TPM 2.0 chip that gets installed on our routers for the secure software and hardware authentication that gets connected to Paragon Cloud that I was speaking about earlier. One other thing I want to highlight here is that we went with the 4-quad CPU, for example, and this kind of RAM with A67024, but we're hearing a lot of feedback from the markets asking about, oh, we need to have a high scale aggregation and kind of use cases. So for enterprise specifically, can we come up with the same box but a little bit better efficiency? So we came up with this box, which we're calling it A67024XL or X. And what it's capable of doing is it can provide you these many routing table, 1.5 million. And then also we are going to be able to support the FIP compression, which means you will have more space. And it can handle the enterprise workloads that they are looking for. What difference we have done is very similar to this one. We have put 8-core or octa CPU, and then we have increased the RAM as well. But important thing to highlight here is that this will not be item because it's not up to us. It's about Intel provider. They cannot provide us with an 8-core item part as of today. So we have some limitation there. But again, this works very well for enterprise market, and A674 is a home run.
And that can do where the 710. I don't think that did EVPN, right? And it was at one point they were going to develop that on the 10, and then this is really where they brought that forward. So that's the big.
Yeah.
One of the big differences as well from the 10.
So this, from the interface point of view, it has native ports, 1 gig, 10 gig, 25 gig, as well as 100 gig. Now we also have a QDD there, is because we have connected the double density cages, but the chip itself, at the moment, it cannot do the double density connection, but in the future, we'll see what we can do about it. Other thing I want to highlight over here is that it is also MEF certified, which is very good. That means it is a great debug buffering platform. So if you're looking for low latency carrier Ethernet and cell site provider backhaul use cases, this is a perfect box. 7024 is coming end of this year. 7024X specifically I'm talking about. And if you see any of the requirement missing here, we are still in the ramp process of our portfolio, so we're happy to develop whatever you see today missing in our portfolio. This is a dump box in a way, but it's very much us. It's 7020 for low interface. Sometimes our customers are asking, hey, can we come up with a similar box with a cheaper price with good enough throughput, which is 80 gig? We said, yeah, sure, and we saw a market for it. So a lot of customers are already asking for it, especially from the South America. They are, in fact, have raised an escalation with the SVP to have it early on, if possible, by mid of next year. We, at the moment, anticipate it will be towards the end of next year. But what I'm trying to tell you is that there's a market out there that is going to buy it in bulk because you just need good enough throughput. Just the low interfaces needed in certain kind of markets. This will be also will have a power supply and fan redundancy, and pretty much very similar pattern we try to follow all across our portfolios in terms of consistency as much as possible. It will be temperature hardened as well. If you are looking for good enough access, good enough aggregation, this is good box.
How's that one going to be priced? Do we know at all compared to the 24? Just because
it is cheaper.
Yeah.
Like I think a little more. I think it's going around 16,000.
But like it's like that would be like like 60% of the price of a 24 basically.
Yes.
Yeah. So at scale, that's large savings. Yeah.
Yes.
That's a good box.
And that's the reason why the South America market loves it.
Yeah.
they go with price.
Mhm.
Yeah. This is the box which we were mentioning earlier about. It was 1.6 tera box. Now we call it Nebula, and it is a great box in terms of the interfaces. You can see it's enriched interfaces, as well as it provides high-scale aggregation, core LSR kind of use cases. You can use it for. It will come in two variants, as I was speaking about, outdoor and indoor. It is a pretty powerful box, and it's going to be very competitive in our point of view. In fact, there was a tier 3 customer yesterday. I was running a bomb with them, and they were asking about this box as well. So it's coming in 2025 at the moment, but there will be an escalation to expedite it because of the opportunity here. 7100 is also a home run. It's been in out for 2 years. You might, some of you know it, some of you are already using it. Let us know your feedback. If you think this box needs to be something improved, we are happy to take that feedback. The difference between these two boxes are mostly the interface and airflow, and one has a MACsec, one doesn't have a MACsec. Again, you guys asked for it, so we came up with 2 different versions to solve your problem. It's like a leaf spine boxes used in DC use cases, as well as for a high-end aggregation. Great performance, and we have the roadmap to do the FIP compression on this as well. It is also MEF 3.0 compliant. A lot of ANTEC reports are out there where this box has been used in tests with other vendors, and it has done very well. And many awards have been won by these 2 products from 7100 line. We noticed that some of you guys have asked about 1 gig on it, so we're working on 1 gig to the Nano Mux, probably 1x10, not necessarily native, but that's the idea we have to provide a breakup. 7300 line, I love to talk about it because on the other side we built something similar on the other side of the Cisco, I'm telling. But this is better. We thought through it. This is a fixed box, but it can also do modular functions. At the bottom, ports are all fixed ports, so you can start small, and then you can build on it. If you need more throughput, you can just add more I/O cards on the top. These are I/O slots for 400 and 800 gig, so very nice, rich interfaces of low speed, high speed, all are native ports. This is going to be iTem. This is about to release in October of this year. This is very popular. We are receiving a lot of beta customers' requests to fulfill it, in fact, prioritize it for post-order as well. This box is the first box where we're trying to experiment with BNG cups, not the integrated BNG, but hopefully we'll, if the requirements come in for integrated, we'll look into it. What kind of scenarios will be covered for BNG cups? The scope is yet to be laid out, but that is a consideration. This box also has a dual RE at the bottom, which is great for service interruption. So it's a very nice box in terms of its compact size, the opportunity it offers in terms of growth, not only from the licensing perspective, but also from the build as you grow, and it's a fixed box. So if you're looking for, again, lean edge kind of roles where you need good enough edge or high-end aggregation, this box is for you. Other innovation we have done on this one is the ability to take out the fans from the bottom vertically. And I also have this box at another event, I'm sure you brought. And ability to pull it out and do your network functions as a network operator, and the cable management problem is resolved. We have also put this cover on the top, inspired by Aston Martin. And this is mainly for dust. And another highlight here is a 733 portfolio, 332 portfolio, which is different than, this is my alarm because I'm not like Chris. Yeah, I'm very bad at it. So sometimes the audience people don't remind me, so I have to remind myself of it. So this box is 7348, the one that you see on the screen, but here is the difference. This is a 7348 and this is 7332. So it has different kind of interfaces. but this will be the one which will come with TCAM. So we'll start with BNG on this one, and then we'll try to roll over.
Ends are all hot swappable while,
Yes.
while the box is fully up and running.
Correct.
And then that one was also hardened, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's.
You mentioned B&G. Will that be in a CUPS environment, or will it run native on the control plane?
Cup environment.
Okay.
But this, again, we're collecting requirement, the scope is not laid out, so I don't want to commit anything right now. But we are working on those plans.
Sure.
This is a 7500 line, 7509. By the way, I still have time because.
Yeah, you have 15
Yeah, yeah,
minutes,
yeah.
yeah, 15 minutes.
You're totally good.
That's very important. Back in the room.
Share your questions, Kelsey.
I didn't want to come across as dumb as I am.
You're not.
I didn't want to get nervous as a presenter, like.
No, I was just asking to
No, just-
clarify something. No worries, sorry about that.
No, it's important to have these discussions. Okay, 7509 is a centralized chassis. It's a 5RU. It has high availability capabilities, which means it has a lot of things that are redundant, which is great. It is also using very less number of components. What it does for us is again, design simplification. It enables the power savings and enables the TCO savings for the users who are using at the service provider end. I'll talk about a little bit about the design innovation in a minute, but it also has very nice interfaces, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Nice interfaces in terms of low speeds, high speeds, and these also have in the front you will see on the faceplate that there are FPC slots. There are 9 slots, but at the moment we're using 8 slots. My fingers don't match to 8, but 8 slots. And then last slot, which is empty, is basically empty because we are coming up with the Qumran 3 base or the Jericho 3 base FPC, and we're gonna plug it in there. We are trying to drive this platform towards 800 gig. So yeah, that's massive. But as the plans come up, we will share more. This box at the moment with the oversubscribed, it says 6.2 tera, but I can say we can go, if we fully loaded, 8 tera. But with the Jericho 3 coming in the picture, then we'll go up to 25 tera. So that's going to be massive. Again, we designed day one thinking about the power efficiency. So that is why the centralized design. A lot of redundancy, as I was talking earlier. We'll skip the slide. Basically, I should just cover. There are 3 kinds of the cards, and they are labeled over here with different interfaces and speeds. This is an important slide, just so that you understand what's in the market and what we are building here. In a market with other vendor, not to name the vendor, but you will know if you have this box. So they basically have the 7RU, a lot of space consuming. It also has the fabric, so it's consuming a lot of power. There's so much limitation in terms of design that you can do. And you have to have all this supporting feeds to support this kind of design. So we looked at it, was like, okay, in this orthogonal design, using too much components, it's a hefty box, charging a lot to the customers. Why don't we come up with a simpler one, where we don't even have a fabric, come up with much simpler design, and look at the number of CPUs we're using, no fabric, less number of fans, forwarding engines as well. And what it does for you guys is it gives you still the same level of performance, but yes, better TCO, and for us, better power efficient footprint. So this is very popular. If you're looking for a good box that can give you a good price point and the TCO savings, this is the one. So on the left side is a power-hungry box, gas guzzler, in other words, and the other side is Toyota. About which one you want to write on. This slide just summarizes A6 7000 portfolio, what we have today, what we are building. Again, rich interfaces, longevity is something we kept in mind. Our platforms are Class C tested and verified, but we also have verified all the way to Class D. And we have a lot of reports written out there by analysts as well as by ourselves. If you're interested, we are more than happy to share. And again, these are just metrics, I'll skip that. I will talk a little bit about our innovation, not only in the hardware, but also the software. So imagine now with the Jericho 2 based portfolio, we are able to do different kind of profiling functions. If you want a cloud metro, I can tune your profile for the cloud metro. If you want metro Ethernet, I can do it for you. If you want lean edge, we can do it for you. If this profile does not fit, then we can come up with a custom profile for you. Just come and talk to us. So that is where we're saying it gives you the scalability optimization. This kind of thing was not possible before Jericho 2, and this is only possible with Jericho 2 and beyond. So a lot of flexibility. And with the power of Junos OS, which is our secret sauce, it's OS evolved, which means evolution. We're able to do the fit compression as well. This is a programmability focused slide. You will hear a lot about elastic pipelining approach that Broadcom has followed. What it does for us is that our software engineers can go and do the coding modification for the packet processing path in this area, and they can do the C++ code and add certain functions or some kind of new additional lookups or function addition. So that kind of programmability was not possible before. Broadcom did not have give us access in the past. It was not even possible on Jericho Plus. Now it's possible for Jericho 2 and beyond. So this gives us a lot of flexibility to fine-tune, tailor, and do things and create a differentiation. Like I was telling you earlier about engines. Everybody has 5 engines in the world, but how do you further tweak it and use your resources? So our focus is more driving how can we do something different than what's being offered. Differentiation. This is a slide talking about the value add that you get with Jericho 2 and beyond family. So in the past, we were not able to do many different things. And mostly I was talking to you about the modular database, high programmability, elastic pipelining. We can do it now. I also talked to you about IPsec and MAPsec earlier. We are able to do with the J2C Plus, and all these different kind of solutions we are able to create just because with the flexibility that Jericho 2 is able to offer, and with the secret sauce of A6 7000 Junos OS Evolve software support. In the past, somehow this slide got exploded, but let's just quickly run through. Peering was focused here. This was all peering. Metro was just this much area, and the edge was all this blue area. But now, with the evolution of Metro and with the features we are able to build with Jericho 2, with our Junos OS Evolve, we are able to cover so many features which are going beyond Metro, touching the peering, touching the core as well as edge. And that is why now you would understand why I say lean edge, because you can do good enough in edge. That is the direction we're headed towards. And why we're headed towards? Because my first slide was saying Metro is the new edge. So our story has to connect to the vision we have laid out. And this is what market is defining, and this is what we are building. So very rich features are coming up. Can we do EBPN? Can we do DCI use cases? Can we do FIP compression, network slicing? Absolutely, with full confidence. And BNG cups, you guys have asked earlier, so it's in our roadmap. By 2024, we are driving lean edge. So that means we will be able to reach 80% parity to what MX can do. But keep in mind, we'll never be able to reach 100% parity. So if you need a scale of MX kind, day one, start with MX. But if you need good enough with a better price point, go with ACX. Again, decision will leave up to you based on your use case, based on your requirement. But do discuss with the sales engineers, make sure that all the configurations and profiles have been studied. But different kind of use cases can be done with ACX. That is why we call them ACX 7000 multi-service routers. I will complete my story here. We have a huge traction worldwide for A6 7000. We are still ramping up, but we are making good business. These are some of the public logos we could use for different analyst teams or even with Broadcom, what they're saying about us, as well as our key customers. And we also got recently in December in a 5G event an award from Light Reading as well. So I'll leave you with this message that this is a growing portfolio. Just stay with us and watch out the innovation that we are doing. We are adopting worldwide, and this is a portfolio that we have thought through day one and building it for tomorrow and making a substantial difference. Okay. Juniper validation, I just want to highlight one thing. I think Chris touched upon it earlier. So these are different companies and logos. One of the logos of the company, so who should be here too. So maybe recognizing that. So what we are trying to say here is that JVDs is basically nothing other than our software and our hardware engineers, along with our technical team called technical marketing team. They sit together and they're coming and building all the configs for you guys. They model those configs and have it ready for different kind of use cases globally for ACX, MX, PTX, so that you can have it ready. And it matters more to the tier 2, tier 3, because you don't have that kind of labor to go build different kind of configs for different use cases. You can use it as a reference, you can save time. It's like a cookie cutter approach. So these are some of the examples that you can use. But of course, the individual touch that the partner team is able to provide, that's one of the kind. This is just as a reference, and it's not a universal solution that the partner is able to give you. It is just for a reference so that you know that this kind of use case has been used worldwide somewhere, as well as you can modify it. You don't have to start day one from scratch to build up, and you can save time. But tier ones, we have seen that they have resources and they have all the flexibility, and their networks are far more complex. They like to start from scratch. What it does for us basically is it gives us an opportunity to study all kinds of different use cases in the market and come up with a better software and hardware solutions and improve our solutions. And there's no way to do it but by actually implementing and simulating what's happening in the industry. What we need from you is that come talk to us, our sales engineers, our partners, see how we can collaborate here, because it's not a one-way, it's a two-way, and we want to make a metro for tomorrow. So we need your help here. And last message I would say is that for A6 7000 portfolio, Junos OS Evolve features are not something that we build only for one hardware, we build all across. That means you will get a common experience. So today, if you have A6 7100, tomorrow you want to add 7024, it will follow along the same feature line. Even if you replace the one router with another router, which should not happen, but if you want to do it, you still get the same feature parity. And what it does for us is that it helps us to simplify operations. Our engineers are better trained, and it helps you guys to not have to train your engineers on different kind of features, functionalities, and also have a smooth transition without having to worry about will our SRv6 will be supported, because in the past SR was supported. Can it be supported? Yes, it will be. Take the example of Southwest Airlines. They use the same kind of Boeing plane. What it does, saves cost to us. We buy cheaper, we want to get away tickets, but it saves on their operations. They're all pilots and engineers are trained. They can buy components in bulk. So we took that idea, we tried to make sure Junos OS Evolve is part of the common software release roadmap all across. So that is all from my side. And I already talked about it. So we have business models, whichever way you want to buy, perpetual, pay as you grow, we have flexibility for you. And lastly, there's a Juniper community. Just read this whenever you get a chance. You want to learn about innovations we are doing and what our router does, what our solution does. Please go through it. Are we still in the room awake?
You're good. You're good.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right. A big thank you to all of you. I really appreciate it, especially also the people who are on the phone line. It could get boring.
That was a
Any
really good
questions?
presentation. I thought that was a really good presentation. It summed it up, and I think the ACX line has been important for Juniper to put out, right? Because all of the boxes that accomplish what the ACX can accomplish now used to rely on homegrown silicone, and the price per port was oftentimes detrimentally expensive. And so this is obviously, as you mentioned, this isn't going to tackle everything that MX and PTX can do, but there's so much of the market, even within thorough MX and PTX environments, there's many components of the network that could rely, or parts of the network that could benefit from having a cheaper port, and I think that's where the ACX shines.
Absolutely. And also MX and PTX, right? If you try to position a metro, certain markets, we cannot win it at the price point.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we had to come up with something that meets your requirement and help us to stay competitive.
Yeah. And they've been, I've got probably 200 of them deployed in some customers, and we haven't seen an outage with them. So they've been bulletproof for 2 years in my very limited engagements with it. So.
And if you buy ASIC 7000 routers today, they're coming with free Paragon automation suite, the basic one. You get it for free. Try. We're giving you opportunity.
Yep.
But in the future, anything you want to go ahead to the next level, you would have to purchase for other use cases. But come talk to us. This is just for giving you a try, just so that you can see.
So what are the chances of getting the ACX code into virtual for EVNG lab scenario?
Ask Kanika. That's something.
Yeah, I'll be sending you an email later, but I mean, there's a lot of people asking for that.
Yes. Are you in touch with Kanika? You know the automation PM?
Yeah.
I don't think he would be.
Okay, so
I work here and I don't even know.
So we have, if you have optics specific questions, plant specific questions, as well as automation specific questions, we have individual product line PMs that can help and address all your questions. So I'm sorry, I don't have an answer.
No, yeah, that's fine. I'll send an email later, but so some of the customers that I've been dealing with, I've been going to them going, listen, you can go to EVNG, you can put the virtual MX in there, the virtual QFX, and you can set up the environment. So I had a customer recently ask me about a BGP problem that they had. And so what I did is I took their whole config, put it into EVNG, and then created the BGP sessions and showed them what their problem was. And they were able to fix it. Now they're asking us to install a EVNG server for them so that they can do that on their own. The thing is like the ACX. So my previous life, it would have been great if we could have done that, because then I could have set up the whole environment the way I wanted to.
Yeah.
And then
testing.
Testing and everything.
It's a request. I'm not aware of a product that we have out yet that's available for customer download. We have recently released Virtual Junos, which is actually based upon EX9214 image. If you actually dig into that, it's a little bit of VMX, it's a little bit of EX image. We've also introduced Virtual Junos Evolved, which gets you more of that CLI experience with Linux and everything. That is based upon PTX 1001-36MR, the Arbor version. Both of those are available for download, lab testing in those environments. Virtual Junos will work if that EVNG is a bare metal installation. It will not work if it is a nested installation.
And I tell everybody, go buy a server. And yeah, the bare metal is much better than trying to go virtual with that.
But it's a major request of ours internally as well to do testing for ACX as well. So we'll I'll let you know as soon as that is on the horizon and able to be distributed.
And if you don't mind, just send the requirement in.
I'll email.
We'll
I'll keep it with us and
make sure
send an
the right
official
PM is
request.
in.
Yeah. I could have sworn, I asked for it back in a couple of years ago, but hey,
I'm just
we'll let that go to the side.
You guys heard a lot of information today. Was there anything specific that while we, had people around that we could answer for you, or?
What were the platforms, Virtual Junos, and what was the other?
Virtual Junos Evolved. I will send an email to Dana here to send out to the audience for you to be able to access that. It's on our website. I'll be darned if I could actually Google and find it, but I can send you the links for accessing it.
And then you can also download the virtual MX and then the virtual QFX. Yeah.
Basically everything is at the ACX.
Yep.
And one other, huge thing about the ACX, given, recent times, this is more relevant, but the lead time on it, the shipping time due to the availability of the chips and things like that, it's probably a third of, a built out MX in terms of delivery in most cases. So
Absolutely.
Not always. I'm going to be very careful with promising delivery dates, but the ACX ships quite quickly.
I think if we can get early on exposure to RFPs and RFQs and the kind of demand coming in and the confidence level, then we can build up to it in terms of forecasting. I think we have recovered far from the COVID times.
Much better.
I would also say, in addition to supply chain, just because we're not focusing on the chipset, it makes our engineers work on Junos OS Evolve features. And also on our hardware design implementation. So we're able to tweak all these designs and think more because we are not investing ourselves in the chipset. So it's giving us an opportunity to, play with our resources much more efficiently. So better use of skill stuff starting from our home.
We've had some conversations on virtual devices, so we might already have this answer, but could you speak a little bit on licensing for the virtual devices and what the expense might be there, if any?
So Virtual Junos and Virtual Junos Evolved are free for lab use. We don't. There is no production version of those that come with JTAC support. They're provided as images, knowing that people need to learn and train. They're not meant for production use whatsoever. VSRX is still a licensable product available for direct purchase through your partner and or through cloud marketplaces. And VMX, if you were to buy it in the next 10 days, is still a production available virtual asset. However, it will be moving to a lab version available for download. All three of those, we will come out with yearly updates to those products that are in step with where we're at with the engineering releases of those respective products. Like I said, there is no JTAC support for those at all. They're not meant for for production environment, but feel free to utilize Bing on them however you would like. And we have plans to come out with some other virtual router type function. I'm not sure if it'll be something. It'll be something that that we can do as a production asset. That's
available today as a virtual.
Talk about the Juniper, the containerized. So yeah, we do have a Juniper containerized native router that is available as a purchased item as well.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Mostly it's just the lab functionality at this point. The virtual QFX in particular, is that part of virtual Junos or is that separate from? Is that a lab only product?
It is separate from, and it's slightly buggy. That's why it's never been available as a production grade virtual product that we force people to purchase. In fact, we made it extremely hard for years for people to get a hold of, but it's something we specifically needed, for data center designs in use with our Abstra EVPN management capability. We needed some way to model that. There are some, I would say, from a customer perspective, we do have some virtual offerings that can be set up via your account team that can provide access to virtual resources, to be able to lab something up, and specifically, before either you go to production and/or if you need to model something, that we can work out with you.
Okay. Yeah, we've got QFX 5120s and EX 4100s on order, and I'd love for my team to get familiar with the Junos environment and, as close to those products as is feasible in a lab environment.
You said 5120 and
EX 4100s.
Yeah.
I mean, really, just getting a Junos is
the Junos is the big part. So yeah, I mean, if you want, you can ping us and we can help you out with a EVG install, and then we can get you on a bare bones. Like I said, the way I would do it is bare bones. The way I've been telling all the customers all along is put it on a bare bones box because it's much easier.
Familiar with EVG, we can do that on our own.
Okay.
As long as we can get the images, that's the big question.
Yeah, not specific to those two platforms that you called out, but you can get a virtual Junos image in and of itself, and the configuration that you would do on those platforms can be mimicked by that virtual device.
Yeah, and there's also just ample free training available for Junos as well, right? That is probably a good place. Yeah, probably a good place.
We'll send it. Danny's going to send it out. We have a couple of boot camps coming up too for techs, for people to come and do boot camp on Junos, and then that's the other one. Mist, AID, Mist is the second one. So there's a boot camp on Junos, and then there's a boot camp on Mist.
Yeah, and if they're, Mist sits on QFX and EX now, so if there's a wired assurance component to that, that'd be good.
Yeah, it's AID.
Yeah, so definitely want to check that out too.
And I think,
go ahead. Sorry, with the boot camps, is there, what are we talking about from a time investment, and what are we talking about from a financial investment per person?
No financial investment. It's a 2-day boot camp.
Yep.
Awesome. Love it.
It's free.
and if that doesn't help address all your questions, then we can have a dedicated EBC session with a product manager who can address those.
Yeah, who's covering that account for you guys?
I don't know. I would have to look.
Okay, because Michael. So Michael should tag in their Juniper rep. You guys are in Texas. Am I talking to the right person?
My team's all over the place.
Okay.
New Mexico. I'm currently in Oregon, but usually in Colorado, and we've got guys in Florida.
Okay, so I'm not sure who the Juniper account team is on that, but they should be able to also provide additional resources too. So you guys should be well taken care of, and let us know if there's anything that
we'll
still a gap.
I'll get that over to Michael that you have those needs, and we'll get some answers for you.
Awesome.
Any other questions?
No.
Thank you.
Appreciate y'all taking the time.
Perfect. This is a great event.
Good.
Oh, we appreciate you guys putting this on. It's fantastic. It's good information too as well.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are making a lot of decisions on Juniper right now, and for us, we're very vested in Juniper, kind of through and through. So I think the education stuff is making these decisions is hard enough without it. So I think it was good for all of us to kind of get an update, kind of see the roadmap as well.
Yeah.
So I have an obligation to do a bunch of presentations over the next year. Every 2 to 3 months, I gotta put out some presentations. So if anybody on the phone or you guys have any questions that I can take an hour to do a presentation on, and then please send it on over to the account team, and I am more than willing to do that because I can only come up with so many different ideas to do. I am sure one of them, somebody's, you guys were asking earlier about IPv6. So I'll add that to my next presentation is IPv6. I'll do some stuff on that. Because I spent at least 15 years only doing that. So I can definitely hit that subject.
Can't wait.
For me,
Don't do that.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Juniper team. Thank you, everybody on the phone. Optical Tel making the trip. Thank you.
We got lunch, right?
Lunch should be served. It should be ready right now.
Take
Denny's
care.
hungry.
Bye, everyone.
He's like, there's a lot.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Oh.